Week 9 of college football, everyone. Does not disappoint, does it? Not anything too ridiculously crazy happened today. Can't think of anything too out of the ordinary. Nothing that really shocked or surprised me. Just a good, solid day of football. A lot of games going down to the wire. And really teams playing the way we pretty much have pegged them to be. We're starting to see a pattern of the elite few and then those really, really good teams that beat just about everyone unless they run into one of them. And then we've got that 40 or 50 that can pretty much do anything on any given day. So we are through week 9 and championship races are starting to show us a trend, starting to show us a path. And I think that's going to be one of our projects this week is going to be to go through all of the individual division and conference races and size it up, what the scenarios are as we enter November. Wow. All right, let's get to the scoreboard and go to the games that are in session right now. I'm not going to be too long-winded. Didn't necessarily have anything pressing. I have produced so many instant analysis videos. That's what I had to say today. Check out the latest two that we just posted: Ohio State, Wisconsin, and UCLA and Colorado. Earlier, Florida State, Wake Forest, Kansas, Oklahoma. How about that one? That was an excellent game. And then I also checked out Oregon, most impressive team of the day against Utah. Speaking of the Ducks, their arch rival, who they're going to leave in the dust in the Pac-12 or the Pac-2 or the nothing, probably the Mountain West, Oregon State and Arizona. And what about the Wildcats? I think this has gone under the radar for a lot of people, not you guys, because you're hardcore college football fans and we keep each other informed on a daily basis. But my goodness, Arizona's playing some good football. Took Washington to a one-score game. Speaking of the Huskies, are they really as good as a lot of people were saying like a month ago when they were like, oh, college football playoff team, and they're phenomenal, and nobody can touch them, and nobody can stop them. Triple overtime against USC. They whip Washington State by 38, and they're playing a really good game against Oregon State. I've not seen any of this game. However, we'll be flipping it on here in just a second once we start the phone calls. 10-10 at halftime, Oregon State and Arizona. Our friends out in Nevada who broke a 16-game losing streak. Hopefully you caught our bottom 10 from this past week. We have some interesting selections coming up, I'm sure, for this week. But the bottom 10 did not include Nevada, but included the team that they defeated 6-0. But the Wolfpack could be on a winning streak here. How about that? 24-0 right now on New Mexico. We've got to UNLV. And this is a huge game in the Mountain West right now. UNLV looking to go to 7-1, as is Fresno State looking to go to 7-1. Both teams, well, UNLV's 3-0 in the conference. Fresno State coming in at 2-1. And the Rebels lead 10-7. This is the zenith of running Rebel football in its history. One of the worst programs in the history of college football. And later tonight, kicking off in just a few minutes, we've got Hawaii hosting San Jose State. This is the voice of college football. If you're dropping by for the very first time, where you been? We talk college football, best discussion, debate, and analysis every day with you. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. Here's the deal. We would like to do this for a long, long time. And this is one of the reasons where you can support us. You shop on Amazon. Most of you shop on Amazon. I know that a few of you are out there saying, I never shop on Amazon, and you're telling the truth. But the rest of you shop on Amazon. When you do, please grab the link that we provide in the description section of the videos. Grab it right now. I'd rather have you grab the Amazon link than watch me right now. Okay, you got it? Got the Amazon link, put it somewhere where you can shop on Amazon using our link. It's the same shopping experience. I promise you. And if I'm not being truthful, you know what you can do? Call me up and cuss me out. Call me right out in front of everyone and cuss me out. Won't cost you a penny, same shopping experience. All right, let's get to it. College football talk, week 9. We got Jeffrey on the line. Jeffrey, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, definitely could not get on last Saturday night. I just actually fell asleep, something I don't normally do, but it might have had to do with North Carolina losing to Virginia last week, and then they do it again. North Carolina loses to Georgia Tech, and I think North Carolina is possibly a team that when you said that some teams are starting to show us exactly what we're expecting them to be, one of those teams was North Carolina, and I don't blame you. I thought they were good. I actually thought the defense was a bit better. They had the Heisman candidate quarterback just like last season, and I just felt like they were going to be able to survive against horrible football teams. Now, granted, Georgia Tech is weird. Sometimes they play well. Sometimes they lose to Bowling Green. But North Carolina, the defense is not better. And I feel like it's a common theme with a lot of these teams with elite quarterbacks. You look at Washington, another team that you just mentioned might not be as good as some people are saying. Washington beats Oregon, looks great, survives that game. Now that they're struggling with everyone else, just gave up a lot of points to Stanford. Washington's defense might not be that great. North Carolina's defense for sure is not that great. And USC's defense is absolutely horrible. I could play better defense on one play. I would be destroyed on that single play, but I would make the tackle. USC does not tackle. What are they doing? So it stinks for Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Michael Penix. They're on 3 teams that their defenses just aren't getting the job done.
North Carolina, I'm seeing right now, and I did not see one play of that game. I saw that they jumped out to, at one point, they had like an 18-point lead in that game, and I thought, come on, Georgia Tech. I was expecting you to play it close. I was confident with the 12 points. You were good to go because I knew that North Carolina would just continue to play marginally against bad teams, but Georgia Tech came right back and blew right by them. 348 yards rushing.
That's sad. That is really sad. To a team that lost to Bowling Green. I know Minnesota lost to Bowling Green and had a 9-4 season. I get that. Yeah. But still, North Carolina really blowing it in a bad ACC.
And we've had this conversation, Jeffrey, and some people, if they don't understand my top 25, would probably say, well, Mark, you had North Carolina ranked, whatever. I had them ranked number 3 in the country. Well, that doesn't mean that I believed in them, that I was just ranking them based on the schedule. So we thought Pitt was decent. We thought Syracuse was decent. Minnesota, probably better than those, most definitely better than those teams. So anyway, we thought South Carolina was going to be better, but North Carolina runs together a string of South Carolina, App State, Minnesota, Pitt, Syracuse, Miami. Not great teams by any stretch, but every week they're playing somebody decent and they're winning. Then they run into Virginia and Georgia Tech. That like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Wow, here's the soft part of their schedule. They'll just move right into a matchup, a huge matchup with Duke in 2 weeks. They'll be undefeated.
Especially the Virginia game. There was no way I would have thought they'd have lost, especially because Virginia's never beaten a top 10 team on the road. Georgia Tech, they lost to them last year. I'm like, again, I could have saw that happening, and it did this year. But I really thought their defense was better, and it's just unfortunate because Drake, man, it's unbelievable. But I swear that because you didn't watch the game, but the commentators on that game said that Haynes King outplayed Drake May. That's not true. It has nothing to do with that. Haynes King played really well, but Drake May still had more yards than he did. He had another touchdown than he did. Had nothing to do with that. It's because of the fact that North Carolina's defense is abysmal. Just like they said that on the USC game, that they were saying that Caleb Williams was not playing good enough. That's the problem with these teams with poor defenses. You expect these quarterbacks to play absolutely perfect to win. You shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to say, Caleb Williams throws for 250, 2 touchdowns and 1 pick, and you win 28-21. And you can't do that because he has to throw for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns to win games. It's abysmal. You look at Alabama in 2015, Derrick Henry, defense. Jake Coker just did enough. Alabama wins the title. I know that was 8 years ago, and it's not the same anymore. It's changed a little bit in college football, but the idea still stands. You cannot win if your defense is horrible because you're going to lose to somebody. So that's my biggest takeaway from the day, just watching these teams. It stinks for UNC because I really thought, like I said, they were better, but They're not. The defense is not getting it done. A team that's really bad is Clemson. Clemson's bad. 4-4. Alabama's not falling off a cliff. Maybe they'll lose to LSU next week, but Alabama has not fallen off a cliff like Clemson has. Clemson's horrible. Just wanted to point that out really quickly. Hate it for Dabo, but got to use the portal. Losing NC State is just compounded with what they've already lost to and the teams they've lost. It's not looking good for Clemson.
Because NC State's pretty horrible too.
Yeah, I know. That's what's even worse about it. I mean, to lose to them, I picked Clemson. I picked Clemson in every game this season, I think, that they've lost. Actually, I picked them against Duke. I picked them against NC State. I picked them against Miami. And I picked them against Florida State, and they've lost them all. Got to stop picking them.
I have too. Yeah, I have too.
Me and you are getting busted by Clemson. Can't do it anymore. No more Clemson.
Although technically I didn't pick today's game, so I'll take myself out of that one. But I picked the other 3 losses. I certainly did.
That stinks. But I don't blame you, though. I mean, you usually back the team that's normally better. Clemson's always been better when I've been watching football, except like when I was a really little kid. But they're just bad now.
And if you take this team and go back to the Florida State game, they had a touchdown lead. They're driving for a 2-score lead. And ever since that strip sack fumble that went 50 yards the other way for a Florida State touchdown, and then the missed field goal at the end of the regulation that most likely would have won the game, that was the best game they threw out there. And they've just, I won't say that they folded, because they went out and they won a couple games after that, but man, they just haven't been the same. And that was the best that they could give us this year. And wow, there are going to be, it was running through my head today as I was seeing the score. I didn't watch one play of this game. I was just watching the other games. Know that it was on the fine CW network, that I was thinking, okay, here's a video for this week. What's wrong with the Clemson football program?
I think another great video would be what's up with the CW. The favorites keep losing. Clemson loses. North Carolina loses. Louisville loses on the CW. If you're a favorite, you don't want to play on the CW.
Yeah, I guess the CW wants to be the new Pac-12 after dark. They want to be like the wild card network where all the crazy things happen.
It's crazy. It's unbelievable. But yeah, I can't though get off, the line without mentioning Indiana. Whoa. Had a chance. Terrible finish to that game. I mean, you have a tie game, and I'm watching this and I'm like, you know what? I'm happy with this. Indiana's covering. They're looking really good. Why couldn't you lose the game right? Just lose the game fighting as hard as you. What was that safety? I don't even know. All I know is I was happy for Indiana, but the ending almost just erases it all.
Yeah. So for me, this is where they lost the game. They're down 24-21. They get a pick on Drew Aller.
They did nothing.
And they didn't even try to do much of anything. They played it super, super conservative. You're on the road. You just got to pick off a quarterback who's never thrown one. You're a huge underdog. You've got the opportunity to take the lead by 4 points, which negates the field goal, and put all that pressure on Drew Aller. There's under 3 minutes left in the game, but no, they settle for a field goal just to tie the game.
The thing is when I watch that play, it's just like the Ohio State game. Indiana's probably not going to win that game, even if they throw everything at the Buckeyes, because they would have stepped up their game probably and won. But Tom Allen's job is going to be lost because of decisions like this, to be conservative at the absolute worst time to be conservative. Indiana is a 32-point underdog. They have a shot to take the lead, to your point, and they run the football 3 times. I don't understand it. I've watched Indiana football since 2018, and this has been the consistent theme. In the bowl game against Tennessee, got conservative late. Against Ole Miss, was conservative the entire game. They have talent. I've said it every single week when me and Will do our preview and predictions. I've said Indiana is more talented than people think. You saw it today when they actually played. Brendan Storsby threw for 270. They've got talent. They do. But when it matters, the play calling is so abysmal. That's why Indiana is bad. And I completely agree with Ralph Wolf's comment. I thought the same thing. It's just, I was just happy that they were being competitive, because I wasn't expecting that. I thought they'd lose by 25 plus points. But at the end of the day, a loss is a loss. And Tom Allen can't figure out, hey, this is a moment that we have to make a play, throw a deep ball, do something besides run the football up the middle. I've watched Indiana with Tom Allen have more 4th and 1 plays where he runs the ball up the middle, and he never gets it. And I'm like, play action pass, roll to the outside, run to the outside, do something, but run up the middle. You have one of the worst O-lines in America, and judging by some of these other football teams I've seen today, Indiana's isn't even the worst. It's better this year, but you still isn't very good. And you're going to run up the middle. You're not going to get anything, especially when you got little running backs. You don't have Derrick Henry. You've got Jalen Lucas, who's 5'9", 165. You've got Josh Henderson, who's 5'11", 200. These are not big backs. And you think you can run up it is what it is. Basically, like I said, I was happy for Indiana. But Tom Allen, if he is fired in the next year or two, it's because of his conservative play calling. So you're absolutely right. And it's just very frustrating. One of my worst takes of the day, though, because I'm sure there's a lot of people behind us to try to get to a couple more real quick, was Oregon. I picked Utah. I went with Rice Eccles. I thought the fact that they do not lose there. Haven't lost there in 4 years with fans. Lost in 2020, but there are no fans. And then they get bludgeoned by Oregon. I knew Oregon was more talented, but I thought that Utah's home crowd and the defense was going to make it competitive. And I went with the Flyer, took the upset with Utah, but man, that was ugly.
Well, none of us, I think, ever expect Utah to be blown out. I expected Oregon to win, but I thought it'd be a really good game. And Oregon.
Like 27-24, something like that.
Yeah, Oregon impressed me more than any other team.
Mm-hmm.
There were other more surprising results, like you just mentioned, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, and others. But in terms of beating a really good team soundly, that was a statement.
For sure. I had a lot of bad takes on my picks this week. Another game I got flat out wrong. I picked Duke over Louisville. I thought Riley Leonard's going to be back, and Duke's going to get the win. I don't trust Louisville because they barely beat Indiana. They barely beat NC State, barely beat Georgia Tech. And then what happens? North Carolina loses to Georgia Tech, and then Louisville shuts out Duke. Granted, I don't think Riley Leonard was 100%, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. But man, I had some really bad games with picks for sure. I did have one that went right that no one cares about. Boise State. I backed the Broncos on the blue field. Boise State beat Wyoming. That was a good one. I know no one cares about that result, but I did pick Boise State to win. I'm trying to go through a couple more. Ohio State won. That's not a shock. Georgia did as well. Washington struggled, like you said. Tennessee beat Kentucky. That was a good game that I wish I had saw more of because I kept watching the Carolina game. But that was a good game too. Tennessee, Kentucky. Darrell, I'm sure, will probably be on. He'll be a little upset, but that was a competitive game. And Devin Leary throwing for 372, something he has not done in a long time. So that was a good competitive game for them. Neil Brown trying to save his job still, beat UCF in an underrated game. That was interesting. A lot of the other results at the bottom just weren't that big a deal. But the last game, real quick, because, again, tons of people behind me, was Kansas-Oklahoma. That was the big upset for a playoff team there. Oklahoma, I never thought could go all the way. I didn't know who they were going to lose to, but a lot of people were starting to back Oklahoma after the Texas win. But then they barely beat UCF. I did pick Oklahoma to beat Kansas, but I thought that Kansas was going to fall short because of the fact, they just did not have, Jalen Daniels. I thought without him, they were not going to be able to win. But Jason Bean's capable. And Oklahoma's defense, another team, it just isn't improved on defense, even though Oklahoma fans thought that they were. So great win for Kansas and Lance Leipold. They got to hold on to him if possible. But that was a great win. And I don't think it knocks Oklahoma out completely, but I would say Texas still has a better shot to make the playoff than Oklahoma does.
I would agree. I think Texas is a better team. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is on the shelf, but Malik Murphy is certainly capable. He's a beast. I didn't see much of the game against BYU, but they certainly, didn't blow them out right away, but eventually had no issues with them, and the defense gave up next to nothing in that game. But, I have had the feeling that Oklahoma surprised me beating Texas the way they did.
I picked Texas.
No other game this season that they really looked, well, they've looked good against just awful competition. And so they've had some lackluster wins against the likes of Cincinnati and this game against UCF last week, who was getting just buried by mid-level Big 12 teams, had
They're
given up 60
3-5.
consecutive points at one point. And then,
Mhm.
I think Oklahoma's improved considerably this year, but I don't think that they're an elite team. I think they're more like a top 15 to 20 team.
So you would say that Oklahoma is worse than Texas, and you would say as well that Oregon is better than Washington, that Washington's worse than Oregon as well. So you would say the two teams that won those games are worse.
Yes.
I think Oklahoma's more obvious, but I'm beginning to agree with you there because I thought Washington was better than Oregon, but after what we've seen, Oregon's pretty good. So they're probably better. And I always thought Texas was better. So crazy week of college football. If Indiana had won, that would have just made the day completely, but they couldn't do it. North Carolina losing stings as well, but hopefully Alabama can win next week, make my family a little bit happier. But it was still a good week of college football. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for taking my call, Mark. We got to get you to 43,000. You're getting really close to 43,000. Doing really good there. Got to get to 100K, 1 million. But I, again, always love talking college football with you on Saturday nights. Hate I couldn't make it last Saturday night. And really this week, I've been really busy. But finally got to get on again. It was awesome.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Good to see you. Have a good night. And, we'll talk soon.
Definitely, for sure. See you, Mark.
Jeffrey's talking my language there. Let's blow by 43,000. Let's blow by 50,000. I told somebody who recently said something about 50,000. Whenever we get to that point, I said, no, I'm not celebrating 50,000. We're not celebrating until 100,000. No celebration at 50,000. Nope. And then I like Jeffrey talking about 1 million. We can, well, I won't say. I'm not going to put my nose up at 1 million by any stretch of the imagination, but we can do fine without quite that many. But hey, let's go for 1 million. We got the real MVP here after a rough loss tonight against the Vols.
Oh, Mark, I just don't know what to say. I feel like I see the Birmingham Bowl in my future, Mark. I mean, this is bad. We're just not good. We're just flatly not good. And I feel like last year's Wisconsin team, where I think unless drastic moves are made, Kentucky's just going to have an inherent ceiling. I don't think Kentucky is ever going to be good enough to even go 8-4, 9-3 in the future with Texas and Oklahoma. Just tough.
I think you're onto something there. I think that's an excellent way to look at it right there. There are moments in time in which you've got to, you can appreciate that what you've done in the past has gotten you to a certain place, and that was necessary to get you into this favorable, decent place. But and then you can settle and be comfortable and say, we can just kind of move along and there'll be fans coming to the games and we'll go to bowl games. And that's who we can be. Who can we be for the rest of our existence? There's all sorts of programs we could point to that Kentucky could emulate, but in that league against that competition, tacking on usually one of those two each year. Wow. And the SEC in a down year that Kentucky's not able to make any move toward competing for the division. Yes, I'm right there with you. I understand that. I don't know if that includes Mark Stoops or it doesn't include Mark Stoops, which I would have bit my tongue before to ever say that in any way you move on beyond Mark Stoops, because I think he's an excellent coach.
He's an excellent coach. It's just, I think we just don't have the talent, Mark, that these other teams have. They're just more talented. They're just deeper. And I thought that really showed in the Tennessee game. I thought when Kentucky wasn't tired, I thought we played better than Tennessee. But with their, hurry up offense and stuff, we didn't have the backups able to be in the game. We got worn down. We got out physical, and they just ran the ball with their third string running back down our throats to end the game. I mean, I don't know what to do, Mark. This feels like a systemic issue in which unless if the Kentucky leaves the SEC and goes to like the Big 12, there's no easy fix. Or unless maybe I should just accept that this football thing is just going to be a sideshow until basketball season rolls around. I mean, honestly, that's where I feel like I'm kind of at with this. Because outside of, with next year, how many teams is Kentucky consistently going to be better than in the SEC? 4? 5? That's just not good enough, Mark.
Yeah, 16 teams in these conferences now. You're looking at finishing 11th, 12th in the conference. That's kind of an ugly look.
Yeah, well, and I'll give you an example of what Kentucky struggles with, and not just beating on the teams you should beat. Like Mississippi State, who Kentucky plays next week. Mark, you realize the last time Kentucky's won at Mississippi State was 2007?
And they play them every other year there.
Correct.
Wow. And that's Mississippi State.
Right.
Mm.
You know the last time Kentucky's beat both Tennessee and Florida in the same season?
The last time that happened?
Tennessee
and Florida? Didn't they do that like 4 or 5 years ago? I guess not. That might have been in that 10-2 season. 10-2,
yeah, no.
10-3 season. I guess not.
It's 1977.
77. Yes, that's the big year for Kentucky. A lot of things happened in 1977.
It was a great year, but, that's long ago.
Yeah.
That's long ago. And unfortunately, unless Kentucky gets a once-in-a-generation or once-a-decade wide receiver, like Kentucky had last year or 2 years ago with Wan'Dale Robinson, or back in the early 2010s with Mark Stoops, first few years with Randall Cobb, there's just nowhere for this team to go, Mark. It's just, you can't run the ball, and everybody knows you're going to run the ball on these great SEC teams and have success. You can do that against Akron. You can do that against East Carolina, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, all these teams. But you can't do that against Tennessee. You can't do it against Alabama.
There's always Vandy. You've always got Vandy.
Well, does Vandy help Kentucky get to that'd be 4 wins with the Kentucky 3 cupcakes. Vanderbilt's 4. I don't even know if Kentucky's going to play Vanderbilt every year. I don't think they're a protected opponent, so Kentucky might play them. Kentucky might not play them. Just tough, Mark. I'm very familiar with how the Oregon State man feels right now. It's just hopeless. We got nowhere to go. We're kind of an outcast. We're stuck, and we're just a punching bag. But we're going to have tons of TV money.
Yeah, there's going to be money to pump into something. I don't know if that's just for people to get rich, or more can go to basketball, or you can build some nice looking facilities around campus. I don't know what you're going to do with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I see James Scott says Kentucky's a perfect candidate for the Music City Bowl. That would be nice if Kentucky literally wasn't in there last year. So Kentucky can't go to that bowl game, Mark.
When I think Music City Bowl, I think Kentucky.
Well, Kentucky's appeared there the most of any team. So
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me either, Mark. What should we do? Do you have any solution, Mark? I'm trying to figure out what to do. I don't want to be like South Carolina fans where you have a great atmosphere, you're hyped up, but every year is a disappointment.
South Carolina is the most underachieving program in the history of college football, I believe. I cannot answer this question, but if I were the powers that be, I would have a real heart-to-heart with Mark Stoops and really try to determine, okay, do we need to part with a coach, i.e., great example that you gave, the parallel being Paul Chryst. Do we have to part and take a chance with if we also believe that we have some other candidates out there that we can go after that are going to be a significant, or at least toward the future, a significant upgrade. So got to determine, okay, is Mark Stoops, can he take us to the next level? If he can't, can we go get whoever we think could take us to the next level?
Well, and I also want to clarify something more. I don't think going to the next level is even good enough. I think going to the next level would mean Kentucky stays at 8-4 because of the quality of improvement in the competition.
Yeah. Well, you're only going to be playing one of these teams each season.
Right, but Kentucky's also going to have to be playing Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU, Ole Miss, something like that along with them.
Yeah, your schedule is going to be pretty similar to what it's been. Okay, get past the schedule. And are there coaches in this country outside of obvious coaches that are not going to Kentucky that you believe could take Kentucky to the next level and that they would have they should have a shot at just about anyone? If the money should be there. They play in the Premier Conference and they've got the money to pay people.
Right. I don't know how many people know this, but Mark Stoops is one of the top 10 highest paid coaches in all of football.
Okay.
So Kentucky can roll out the dough for anybody they want. But Troy, their head coach, he has some Kentucky ties, but I don't know how good he would be for Kentucky. I feel like we need a big name in order to make a splash.
The other blue blood basketball programs in this country, North Carolina, Kansas, and then if you go Duke, Indiana, UCLA, none of them are consistent football powers. I don't know if there's a correlation there.
Well, I don't want to be consistent football powers, Mark. I just want to be at worst 6-6, most of the time 8-4 or 7-5, and then occasionally have a 10-win season.
Well, that's what you are. You have defined what you've been the last 5 or 6 years.
I don't think we're going to be that in the future with Texas and Oklahoma.
You're going to play one of them out of 2 each season.
Right, but which division's easier, the SEC East or the SEC West?
Well, traditionally it's the West.
Right, so with the divisions going away,
more of a balanced schedule, sure, but I don't know that the West is better right now. I don't know that it was better last season.
Yeah, and look how Kentucky did last season. Had a disappointing season.
No, you just said basement 6-6 and 8-4 is what you're looking at most of the time, and that's what you've been doing.
I guess, Mark. It just feels like we ain't improving, I guess, toward the next step and we're just declining. Maybe that's the issue. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me being a homer, you know?
We had a conversation this week with a Knoxville radio guy who's been covering Tennessee for a long, long time. And I asked him what he thinks of this rivalry. And he said, regardless of how good the teams are, and he said, granted, Kentucky has been better than us for most of the last 5 or 6 years. He said, Tennessee will always consider itself Tennessee. We don't mess around with Kentucky. We don't consider them that much of a rival. We consider that we should beat them all the time. So there are just sometimes, outside of Clemson, what program has really elevated itself in the last, let's say, 20 years in a sustainable way that it matters? Kentucky has elevated itself from 2-10, 3-9 to what we see pretty consistently 7-5, 8-4, and even better a little bit here and there. But who has elevated themselves to this type status you're talking about outside of Clemson?
Maybe you're right. My expectations are unrealistic, but Kentucky now has only beaten Tennessee 4 out of the last 39 times. Can we make it 10 out of the last 39 times? Is that too much to ask for, Mark? Can we not lose to Florida 31 straight years? I don't feel like that's too much to ask.
Well, you're past that. You're not losing to Florida 31 consecutive times.
Yeah, but do you see what I'm saying? I don't think we should be having these super long losing streaks to anybody in the country. I'm not saying we should beat them every year or every other
program anymore.
Well, Kentucky hasn't beaten Tennessee in forever outside of 2020. I mean, they just can't beat them for whatever reason.
Some of that is just coincidence, or they've got your number or whatever. You've been better than Tennessee since about 15 or 16? Right,
but that's what going back to my saying, we can't get over that hump and beat the teams we should beat. And that's why I'm very concerned with, because we're adding teams to the top. Should be Kentucky on the regular.
Yes.
That's my concern.
Okay, if we look at this in the way that you're looking at it from a scheduling standpoint, and either Oklahoma or Texas is added to the schedule each season, I get that. Plus, I understand your point that just like a Big Ten Western Division team, for example, is going to have a much more difficult schedule because they're going to have to play a balance of the rest of the league and not just load up on the Big Ten West, that the SEC East has generally been behind. So maybe at worst, you're adding 2 losses to your schedule each season, but you're not going to lose to Oklahoma and Texas every time. You're not going to lose to the addition of Ole Miss or LSU or whomever every time. You're giving those schools a little too much credit.
I guess you're right, Mark. It's just tough, You think you have a team that can do great things, and then they just face plant. It's hard not to get down on your team. But Mark,
what did you think this team was going to do this year?
8-4, 9-3.
Okay.
And it looks like 6-6 or 7-5. I doubt they beat Mississippi State. Alabama, almost no chance unless their team doesn't show up to the stadium. And then another team I actually want to talk about, Louisville, Mark. I mean, Louisville's got a golden ticket to the ACC championship game, especially with North Carolina losing to Georgia Tech. I think your ACC championship game is Florida State and the winner of Louisville, Virginia Tech next week.
Yeah, can you believe it? Virginia Tech has quietly won 3 consecutive ACC games. I don't
just
think
tells you how bad the ACC is.
Yeah, I don't think people have noticed that they just butchered, just slammed Syracuse the other night to get themselves to 3-1 in the conference. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, credit to Purdue and Rutgers. I mean, those wins for the Big Ten are aging like fine wine, Mark. Virginia Tech's 3rd place in the ACC.
But let's look at this schedule real quick, because they have a lot of credit to Brent Pry and Virginia Tech, who I thought was one of the worst teams in the country in the Power 5 with their big 3-1 record. But they beat Pitt. Pitt is just incredibly awful. And now they've beaten Wake Forest and Syracuse the last 2 weeks. Those teams are awful. What's impressive is that they've won all these games by 3 and 4 touchdowns. Now, as you mentioned, they've got Louisville in their sights coming up this week. And then it's Boston College, NC State, and Virginia. Can you imagine? They could go like 7-1, 6-2 in the ACC.
It's like the Coastal hasn't just expanded, Mark. It's kind of a beautiful mess.
Yeah, no North Carolina on the schedule. Not that they're anything great. Not that Virginia Tech couldn't beat them, but no North Carolina. And I guess here's another example of what would have been a big deal weeks ago, but no Clemson on the schedule either. Yeah, that's a closing run right there with BC, NC State, and Virginia for Virginia Tech. Is this team going to go like 9-3?
Crazy, Mark, crazy. I'm not sure if you saw, but Boston College almost lost to UConn today.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my goodness. How? UConn's terrible. I mean,
that's becoming like, I was going to say an annual thing for BC to lose to those kind of teams, but now it's becoming almost 2 or 3 times a year. Holy Cross, Northern Illinois, UConn. They load up their schedule with these cream puffs and they still can't even win them for sure. And there's actually Michigan fans saying in the chat that they play a tougher schedule than people think they do. I don't know where that's coming from.
UNLV, they just look at the records because apparently this is the NFL, Mark, and the only thing that matters is your record, not who you've played or how you do against those teams or anything like that. You go 12-0 in the FCS against FCS opponents. That's the same as going 12-0 against Power 5 opponents, apparently. But someone else I want to talk about, Mark, is Maryland, Mark.
Yeah.
Can we just ride the Maryland is good train? Has that train officially left the station?
It's done. It was done last week when they lost to Illinois. done over. They're no good. There's
And another
like 9 teams in the Big Ten that you have no idea what's going to happen when they play each other. So I'll just put them in that bag. Yeah. I do that when I look at the Big Ten power rankings. If I make those, once you get past like team number 4 or 5, the next 9 spots are, and maybe it goes down to the very last team in the league now, because there used to be like a definite, okay, they're the worst. And maybe it's Michigan State, but it's like, okay, they're definitely the worst. And then everybody else, there's like 10 teams that are almost, I have no idea where to put them. And one of them will probably win the Big Ten West. Like Nebraska could win the Big Ten West.
Yeah, Nebraska had their giant win today against Purdue, 31-14. I mean, Purdue's just really bad team, Mark. Another
Nebraska
really bad Big Ten.
controls its own destiny. Nebraska does, and Minnesota does. They control their own destiny.
Sad. Just sad, Mark.
Well, basically Minnesota does. And then if they lose, Nebraska does. Yeah, those are the teams that control the West. It's unbelievable how awful that is.
Yeah, and the final game I'll talk about is Miami. Is Virginia decent now? Have they found some magic after their first win, or is this just how bad Miami is?
I think it's a little bit of both, because we did see that Miami team against Georgia Tech. So they're capable of, again, they're in this bag of ACC teams, and shoot, we could throw in the Big 12 and the Big 10. We could throw in every league to a certain extent and just say, who knows who's going to win these games? Miami, I know that maybe the Miami fans are feeling good about their 6-2 record, but they could easily have lost the last 2 weeks and be 4-4. So they're not that close to being mediocre. Yeah, Virginia could have easily won that game. Another overtime win. They can thank their lucky stars that they've got a good field goal kicker.
Right, Mark. That's all I got for you tonight. Fight on to the Big 12 leaders, the Iowa State Cyclones.
There it is. We can always count on DeReal for the close. He always has a closing line that gets to me, and that was a good one right there. The Iowa State Cyclones, 4-1 in the conference now with their win, tied with Texas, OU. Again, I may be including some 3-1 teams, but I'm basically saying 1-loss teams in the Big 12. We all assumed Oklahoma and Texas are just going to march through everyone. Nope. All right. And the point about Michigan, yes, I understand Michigan's playing great. They're blowing everyone out. They're great. I get it. I think they're great too. I would like to see them play someone and beat someone first before I truly call them great. I don't use that term very often. I don't know that we have any great teams. I don't know that even after the national championship team, I will be able to say they're a great team. I will say they're the national champion, so that's a historic win. It's difficult to win a national championship. So whether that's Georgia or Ohio State or Florida State or whoever that turns out to be, Texas or Washington or whomever, yeah, in a sense, they can say, we're a great team. We won a national championship. I get that. But truly a great team. And so I can't remember ever a top 5 team in the country holding up a win against the likes of UNLV in such regard as that defending their schedule. All right. Eddie says, what am I missing there? Something. Oh, with USC moving to the Big Ten, who would be great? Who would be a great defensive coordinator for them? Yes. Before I even read Jim Leonard. If you watch our USC show, we were talking about Jim Leonard the entire offseason after he was bypassed for the permanent head coaching job at Wisconsin. Yes, he's the first guy I think of. Alex Grinch will get fired today, surely. Today? Maybe. Could be midseason. We've seen that. We just saw Walt Bell fired midseason. Riley had no business taking him with him from OU. Yeah, that was the time to make the break. That really was the time to make the break. I know it's easy for me to say this now, and it wasn't like a talking point that I discussed or put out there in a video to say, but when you're leaving Oklahoma, you're going to USC and you're trying to turn around a program that was in its worst shape in decades. And you're the offensive guru. You're the guy that's going to run the offense. Why not go out there and get the best defensive coordinator to bring USC back to greatness and not, I'll bring the guy with me that's just, he's okay. We're at USC. No, that doesn't cut it. Go get one of the best. All right. Thank you for the contribution. Rob's calling tonight. Good to hear from Rob. Rob, what's going on tonight?
Hey, what's up, Mark?
Not too much.
So I want to talk to, I want to respond to Jeffrey real quick, the first caller. He said that he's not going to pick Clemson next week, and I want him to reconsider because Notre Dame plays Clemson, and I definitely want that win. So, Jeffrey, go ahead and pick Clemson there so we can get another win there. As far as the real, yeah, I'm going to also be picking on my team just a tad here as a Notre Dame fan. Talk about a strange team this year, and it's kind of like going back to last year with Notre Dame, where we had some really good moments and some really trash moments. If you'd have told me that Notre Dame was going to win, like, was it 57-7 or 58-7 or whatever it was, I was going to say, hey, the offense finally woke up, and Sam Hartman must have had a heck of a game. Maybe Audric Estime. Maybe we finally got things going. And yeah, one of those two things was true. Estime had a great day today, but my God, like, I just want to break this down real fast because I know you got callers on the line, but like the last 5 games, here's Sam Hartman's stats: 17-25 for 175 and a touchdown, 15 of 30 for 222 and 0 of anything, 22 of 38 for 254, 2 TDs and 3 picks, 13
Louisville.
Yeah, that
Right.
was Louisville.
Yeah, I recognize all these numbers. Go ahead. Yep.
13-20 for 120, 2 TDs and 0 touchdowns against USC, which, hey, USC makes anybody look like all-stars, so that's a pretty pedestrian stat line considering. And then you have 18 of 25 for 288, 0 touchdowns and 2 picks against Pitt. So and then we get Steve Angeli comes in the game in the end of the game and has 6 of 7 for 90 yards and a touchdown. To our backup, or not our backup, but like our third string tight end. So the question that I have is, what in the world is going on with both Sam Hartman and Jared Parker? It's blowing my mind. Like Notre Dame, the thing that's held us back the most, for the longest time, and I think most people know this, it's no surprise, we have not had good quarterback play for quite some time. And a lot of us thought this was the year where, hey, we finally got Sam Hartman. We're going to be having one of the elite, or maybe not elite, but one of the better quarterbacks in college football. It just hasn't panned out that way. And I think it's unfortunate for Sam because I know he came here wanting to play a more pro-style offense and get his draft stock up. But I don't know who to blame. I don't know if I should be blaming. Well, I do know. Jared Parker has just not impressed me at all, offensive coordinator. I think this is like the first time that Notre Dame actually, where he actually started like throwing passes to Audric Estime, to just like try to set him up for a more pro style, NFL almost style offense. It's like, because Estime's been a good running back, but they haven't really focused on giving him the ball out in the flat, try to make some passing plays for him. I don't know. I'm frustrated with Notre Dame's offense. Our defense is then lights out, obviously. I mean, Xavier Watts, I don't know if you paid attention to him in that USC game. He had another amazing game today. His stock is, he's really playing his butt off. So thank God for Al Golden in our defense, because my God, the offense is just a mess. The offensive line, they're playing okay. Audric Estime is playing good. Our running backs, we have some explosive players. Our wide receiving core is not great, but they're way more maligned than what they actually are, because a lot of people don't know this probably, but like almost like three of the better receivers have been struggling with hamstring issues or various injuries for several weeks now. So that doesn't help, but there's no reason why Sam Hartman should be having such horrible numbers. I mean, he's averaging 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and 62% completion for like 200 yards or 220 yards per game. It's just over the last 5 games. It's brutal. So much like DeReal, I just wanted to rant on my team real quick because, yeah, it's funny to me that we have the quote unquote quarterback issue fixed, and obviously we don't. So
Well, I'll put it this way. I tend to look at these things when you're not on campus and you're not at the practices and you don't there's no way to determine exactly what's going on, but you can take logical thinking and you can look at history and you can look at like circumstances and you can do all those things to kind of put together what is most likely happening. Well, the one thing I will tell you when it comes to Sam Hartman is that players in college football, some get better, some get worse throughout their careers. Well, I would say it's probably 90% get better and 10% get worse because generally they just get better. They get more knowledgeable. They get more experience, and especially at the quarterback position. They get better unless they get hurt or they get dumped on some coach that doesn't know what they're doing. And especially when that player is intelligent, when they are hardworking, when they have an NFL future to play for, all the things that Sam Hartman has shown us. So I doubt if he's the problem and he's getting worse by himself or based on his own, uh, initiative solely. And then I would also say, though, that some of those numbers are part circumstantial, that he's not needed to carry an offense like he was at Wake. When he was at Wake, he and 2 or 3 wide receivers were everything. And they won the games because of them and him throwing for 450 yards a game. But that's not required now. So there's really only one of those games when he kind of let the team down, in my estimation, like the USC game. They win that game by 4 touchdowns. He went 13 of 20 and you made the comment pedestrian, but in 20 pass attempts, you can only do so much. So that it just wasn't required. The situation didn't call for it. I'm sure he can still throw for 450 yards if you want to play a 48-42 game against somebody and maybe have him throw a couple picks as well. The picks obviously today didn't hurt Notre Dame and they were inconsequential to the outcome. So I don't know that they really matter. So I haven't lost a whole lot of faith in Sam Hartman.
right. Well, yeah, it's not like doom and gloom. Like he's a good enough quarterback, even though he's not been playing well recently. He's a good enough quarterback where you can just hope, he knows how to run the offense, and he's not going to be a huge detriment, but he's definitely not been playing well. And again, I'm not blaming Sam as much as I'm kind of blaming Jared Parker. I think his offensive play calling has not been great. One of our coordinators, Al Golden, has been amazing. Like his defense, the defense for Notre Dame has been saving the day in a lot of these games, or at least giving us the chance to win. And it's like Jared Parker does. He's not like the worst offensive coordinator in the country. I'm not going to pretend that he is. He's probably not even all that bad, but he's certainly one of the weakest links. And it's never more apparent than what you see. Sam Hartman draft stock decreasing coming to Notre Dame, which is a more pro style offense. It's unfortunate for him, but I don't think he's getting drafted at this point. Like at least definitely not in the first several rounds. But hey, that's just my opinion on that. So I do think Notre Dame should win out. I think they're good enough on special teams and defense, especially, that their offense can continue chugging along and just get enough points to win, their upcoming games. So as long as Jeffrey picks Clemson, that is.
Well, I tend to think, Rob, that Sam Hartman's draft stock is going to have a lot to do with the draft class at quarterback. Because quarterback's just a different position than the other positions because you only need one at a time. But teams are generally desperate to get that guy. So we see quarterbacks go off the board that probably aren't at the level of that round, but teams are looking for franchise quarterbacks, but at the same time, if it's a stacked quarterback class, then he'll probably plummet.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. So the other thing I just wanted to say was, man, USC fans have got to be. I don't know. I don't want to say happy, but like, yeah, that was a close win against Cal. I thought they were going to do what they did against Utah last week and just give the game away by, like Caleb scored too soon against Utah. I think if he tries to hold the ball a little bit longer, maybe they stretch that out. Maybe they win that game. But yeah, it was looking like they were going to lose another one. What do you think about Cal not just kicking the field goal there? Like, do you think
The extra point?
Yeah, the extra point.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I kicked the extra point. I did not watch that game until it was, whatever. I saw Cows up by 2 touchdowns with 7 minutes left. So I watched the end of the game, and I'm kicking the extra point. That's just all there is to it. And I somewhat believe in this. Oh, if they're the better team and you're the inferior team, then you try to steal a win with one play. But Cal doesn't have a strong quarterback. I think that has something to do with it as well. If you've got one of the better quarterbacks in the country, then you put it on them, especially if they're mobile. That threatens the defense. That would weigh in my decision. But I don't necessarily. I know that USC is a much more talented team, but you're playing at home, and I don't know in that circumstance that you're really an inferior team. So just kick the extra point and keep playing.
Yeah, that surprised me a lot. I mean, yeah, if he makes it, he looks like, it looks like a great play call, and everyone's like, "Oh, great job." But like, the problem is that's a tough like you're basically, since you're losing, I mean, you're behind. If you don't get it, then it's just bad. And yeah, I take the extra point on that.
Unless you have a really good play call. And again, unless you have a quarterback, I would tend to, if I'm going for a 2-point conversion, if I've got a quarterback who's elite, he's Caleb Williams, then I get him on the run where he's got the option and he puts the defense in conflict as to whether to come up and play him or stay back in the end zone. But it's difficult they just called like a drop back pass from the 2-yard line. And the defense is at such an advantage. They only have to defend like 3 yards. It's just, I don't know. It's difficult. I hardly ever see drop back passes work for a 2-point conversion from the 2.5-yard line.
Yeah, I think that was the wrong call there. And the last thing I'll say is, man, Oregon. If I'm USC, I am getting ready for a bloodbath when they play Oregon. Man, Oregon's looking very strong right now. And yeah, they went to Rice Eccles and beat Utah there. That's tough to do. So yeah. It's going to be rough for USC going forward. I wish their fans well, because it's not looking too pretty.
No, it doesn't. But I tend to think that they're going to put up a hell of a fight against. Well, they got to go to Autzen for Oregon. I still think they're going to put up a fight. But yeah, that is going from what looked like a 50-50 game a month ago to a significant Oregon. Tim is letting us know in the chat that USC's fine. I don't know what that means. I think that means that they were able to board the plane to fly home. They're fine. Yes, we understand that they're going to be able to go to class and make their NIL sign those checks and so forth. But as a football team, they're not fine. That's for sure. They can't beat Cal. So it's pretty awful.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I think not Michigan. I think USC was sold. Like, getting Lincoln Riley there, they should have ensured, like, hey, you have like 1 year to test Grinch out. We weren't impressed, what we saw. So you got a year. If there's not significant improvement, like, he's got to be gone at the end of this. Like, I wouldn't even oppose. I'm usually opposed to like mid-season firings, but if they decided to get rid of Grinch, I mean, I totally understand, because he's certainly holding back the team. And Riley's attitude, especially in like post-game press conference, he really doesn't seem like he cares enough, in my opinion. Now, whether he's like putting on a more forceful display in the locker room that he's hiding from the press, I don't think he is, because I've seen the way he acts with Caleb and all that. But anyways, I don't want to rag on USC too much. I got to get out of here. I know you got a bunch of other callers. So,
Well, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it.
yep. Thanks.
Have a good night.
You too.
I don't believe in the whole narrative that Lincoln Riley doesn't want to win games or doesn't care about winning games or championships, that he just wants to run up 50 points a game. I don't believe that. I don't think you get to be as successful as Lincoln Riley by not caring if you win games and win championships. I think that's what he wants to do. If Lincoln Riley doesn't care about that, then I not only question his integrity as a head coach, I also question his brains. Because if you're a head coach, if you win, that's all anybody cares about. That is your legacy, period. If USC wins 3 national championships under Lincoln Riley in the next 10 years and they win them 7-3, nobody is going to care if they're scoring 50 points, 60 points, or they're scoring 3 points. Nobody cares. Win. Just win the games, as they say. Who was that? Herm Edwards. Win the game. That's all anybody cares. So he would be a complete moron, an idiot, if he does not care about. And I understand it. You know, Lane Kiffin has the same reputation to a certain extent, but I don't think that's accurate. If you look at Lane Kiffin's last recruiting class, it was stacked on the defensive side. It's easier to build an offense than to build a defense, especially if you're that guy, and to scheme it yourself than to go get the elite defensive coordinator. And we're seeing that right now. I don't want to play hindsight 2020. I don't do that. And I don't even remember when posed with the whole Alex Grinch thing. I never thought he was that good, but I never thought he was awful. If you look back and you're being honest and forthright about it, you understand that when he was at Washington State, he upgraded their defense tremendously when he was under Mike Leach there. They were like 100, 110 in the nation, and he churned out some top 25 to 30 to 35 defenses at Washington State. Then he went to Oklahoma, and they had one nice surge of defensive play one particular year. It must have been 2018. So there you go. Anyway, I do think that if Lincoln Riley would have looked at it in the sense that this is USC, and I know he came from just as great a football program, but this is USC, and I can make a clean break and possibly go get a top-notch defensive coordinator, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Well, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We got Nick on the line. Nick, what's going on?
Not too much, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I think you've mentioned your Amazon link like once since you went on live. I noticed you keep bringing that up. I guess I haven't been paying too much attention to the chat, but you've only mentioned it once. Why, obviously that's going to benefit your channel more. Why aren't you, this is not an attack. This is just what I'm noticing.
I want to hear your suggestions. I'm all ears.
Why hasn't it been mentioned more, and why don't you have what do you call them, mods in the chat? Are they mods, like the highlighted people?
Yeah, well, they do that, and I do that as well. I haven't done it tonight, and John just did it, but they typically drop the link in the chat. Yeah, I cannot expect, nor anybody on YouTube, because there are all sorts of YouTube creators that I really like, but then I forget to like their video. I forget to listen to them as well. So I don't expect people to be as diligent about this as, it's my business, it's my career. So I need to be more invested in, making it extremely easy for people to do that.
Well, it's extremely easy to have your mods suggest okay, throw in this link, because I've noticed that they throw in the call-in link way more often than they do the Amazon link. So why?
Yeah.
Like
And
that,
as somebody is mentioning in the chat, it does hit me from time to time that I don't do nearly enough promotion on here. Now, I don't
no,
want
it's not
come
even
on
about
here
you directly.
and don't want to drive people away to a certain extent, but I also need to promote better. But yeah, you bring up a good point. But if you have noticed that the mods do a nice job of including all of those links most of the time, so
No,
I
it
have
doesn't.
no issue
I-
with our mods. They do a great job.
No, I don't have an issue with the mods either. I'm just saying, like, you're saying, like, I need to do a better job and like all this. You really don't. It's just a standard rule, like it's a standard listing, right? Like any company has certain priorities. So like
Yes.
just from a marketing background, like if you just have a list like every 30 minutes or every whatever, just throw that link out at a set, like you can set all of this. Like it's a parameter game. And then you would have a lot more people, you would just drive a lot more traffic to it. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, and usually I make a list for myself that includes nothing about football and everything about the Amazon link, my Discord link, uh, Aura, all the other things that we have, the merchandise, and then I get involved talking to everyone, and I don't bring it up as often as I should.
no, I get you. Again, I'm not trying to criticize you or anything. I'm just
No, I appreciate you talking
from
about it.
from like a marketing background. I'm just saying like marketing is driven by mostly consistency. So not even necessarily from the owner or whoever's running it. It's just like a set of rules that are followed. You know, like a clock. A clock hits 2 p.m. every day and 2 a.m. every day, but it's still 2, and it happens twice. Like it's systematic. It's systematic to its core. Anyway,
I'm going to write down one thing on my notepad. It's the only thing on my notepad tonight. It's going to be your name, and that's going to, and then if I put consistency and systematic, that's going to spark everything that you just said. And this is going to turn out to be the best phone call we've had tonight
why is that?
because it's the most beneficial phone call. That's why.
Okay. Well,
Thank
yeah.
you for that, Nick.
No. It's again. I'm not. Some people take offense to that. I'm not trying to.
I don't take offense to a whole lot. So don't worry about
No.
that.
I'm a marketing student. I have a marketing degree. Like all that nonsense. It's a tick in my head. So like whenever I hear somebody like saying like, oh, I wish this or I wish that, I look at it from just. I can't get that marketing eyes out of my head. So anyway, I was just giving you suggestions. So, but anyway, first of all, I had some notes here I was going to bring up, and my computer crashed. Let me see if I can get this back real quick. In the meantime, let me get your opinion. I feel like it was kind of, I don't want to say a boring week of college football because that'd be disrespectful, but just CFP Final Four. At this point in the week, what do you feel comfortable with? Not holding you to anything, comfortable with Final Four teams. And if it's 5 or 6 teams, that's fine. Like that's like you could put like 2 or 3 teams in the 4 category or whatever. But more so, I'm asking this for like what set teams in which conference would you be surprised would not make the college football playoff?
Who would I be surprised at not making the playoff? I wouldn't be surprised at anyone not making the playoff. So I guess I'll flip it to who is the most likely to make it.
Yeah.
Georgia has the easiest path. They always have.
Over FSU?
Well, that's a good call. They had it from the beginning, and FSU has cleared whatever hurdles LSU, Clemson, and now has I don't know that Florida's going to be much of a challenge, but it's a rivalry game. And there's a Pitt team next week that is completely atrocious that I thought in the preseason might be a pretty decent team. And they have to go there in November. So forget that game. I can't remember who else Florida State plays, but I don't think it's anyone significant left. Yeah, Florida State is certainly in a great position. Yes, Georgia has a more difficult conference championship game in store for them, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Who do you expect Georgia to face in the SEC conference championship if Georgia makes it, obviously? I know the chat's
well, Georgia can sleepwalk there now. They've got a 2-game lead. They have to lose to somebody and lose to Tennessee.
Yeah, but who are they going to face in the conference championship?
Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you still would give Alabama like a legitimate, like percentage wise, what would you give like Bama 40, Georgia 60? Like, what are you thinking? Like right now, this is a snapshot. This is not
I think it's a toss up.
Oh, 50-50. You're going,
yeah,
you're going quarters.
I have more faith in Alabama than just about anyone that I talked to on here. Like people were writing them up. This is what's funny about the college football season is that if I had somebody keep track of comments to the show, whether they be to videos or in this chat or on the phones, can you imagine the ridiculous comments that we could post of teams that were written off? Alabama sucks. They're horrible. I saw that all over the place after they lost to Texas. And it's happened for years, every season with certain teams. I've really not wavered on Alabama. I think they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, but I would also argue that like there's a reason why people don't do that to you, right? But that does happen to other people. Like there's a certain limit to like you can have a take in the moment that a lot of people accept or make sense in the moment, but a lot of other media personalities go way over the top and let their bias just seep into them like a venom and then get roasted for it. I mean, this is the difference. I've always talked about this. There's a difference between what I call is the majority of people in the media who are doing buzzword reporting and journalism. I mean, anyway, I'm not going to go down that road too much.
Yeah,
but anyway.
well, I was a journalism major, and I was a journalist at one point in my life. I don't consider myself a journalist now. I'm not one, but that's my background from a long time ago. So I actually had to be responsible. So maybe that impacts how I approach this now. So that doesn't mean I'm always right. That just means I'm not flailing away in week one saying, this team's out of it and they're out of it and they suck and they suck. No, it's never going to happen. And then yes, we see all sorts of ridiculous statements made by people. Yes, both in front of the mic and then also just people and they're fans. So that's fine.
Okay, so why doesn't college football have full-time refs?
Well, it probably has something to do with the way this sport has grown. This sport,
right
in
now,
many ways, I understand that, but in many ways, this sport has outgrown itself from a financial standpoint, and in small little pockets, and those are evaporating by the year, but there are still small little pockets that take us back to 50, 70 years ago, when college athletics were actually played in such a way and structured that they were intended to be. All of this really is totally out of control and shouldn't be like it is.
Do you fear that?
We should have student athletes go into class and they should only go to practice like 2 hours a day. And that's how it should be. But the money has pushed it out of control. Well, not just the money, the greed in winning as well. Just like youth athletics, just on the, we shouldn't have 13-year-olds traveling all over the country playing some sport that they will never make a dime in. That's just stupid and ridiculous. But it's just people like my age have grown fanatical about winning and competing and pushing people to the limit. And then there's the money aspect, which always ruins most things. And I know I'm going on a tangent that you didn't expect, but I've got to think that goes back to officials being just, why would we have full-time, if it's 1965, why would we have officials full-time in college football? They can show up on
But you worked
the day of
at
the game.
ESPN. You worked at a major network.
Yes.
You worked at ESPN. You worked at a major network. So you're not just the guy who can say, well, people like college football fanatics like me. You're not that guy. So what I'm asking is, like, why don't the major networks who invest $7 billion into something?
Why don't they demand?
Why don't they have or employ full-time employees who have a direct effect on legalized gambling betting lines? And that's just a specific variable, but I'm being that specific on purpose. It's extreme, but it makes a point. I don't understand that.
Again, I think this partially comes from the way this sport has evolved and grown up. So we still have a situation where look at the Michigan scandal right now. Why is there a scandal with Michigan stealing signs? Well, it's not about stealing signs. It has to do with the budget that was determined in 1994 could not be, that not every school in America could take on a budget to have scouts and coaches travel to all these places to scout these teams. So we're accommodating the Kent States and the Bowling Greens and the Ball States of the world at the same level that we're accommodating Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia. So it makes for very awkward rules and regulations of the sport.
Okay, so let's just break this down. Can you? Well, let me ask you that, because you were kind of going into like sign stealing and like all this other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with full-time refs. So like I kind of want to focus on that again.
No, but I'm giving you a reason why the sport doesn't. It's almost
historical evolution.
It's like 80% professional and it's 20% stuck back 50 years ago. And that's one way in which it is.
Okay, so let me ask you this. We're clearly getting to that point though, right? Of evolution, of where there's the major conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten, are eventually going to get to the point where there's enough funding where it's not the same sport as other conferences, right? So isn't there going to have to be some kind of recognition that like we need to do things differently here because of the money involved?
We're already way past that point. We're way past that point where
but then why don't they have full refs now?
They don't need to. Why? Who's
Because it's ridiculous.
Who's determining? Yes, see, but you're getting to the crux. So you have I'm not disagreeing with you, but you and I and different fans that care about such a thing have a certain standard with the officiating. But if it's not taking money out of their pockets, why would they pay and upgrade their officiating if it's not hurting the sport? Maybe it's hurting the sport on the field, but it's not hurting the revenue of the sport.
Okay, well then it's a ticking time bomb.
Why?
It's a ticking time bomb. Because it's not going to last. Because no, like, legitimate, like, if you look at any case study of structured business that lasts, like, it's not going to, this environment is not going to last. That's all I'm saying.
What about the officiating is not going to last? And I'm not disagreeing with you from the standard of raising the quality.
Because we see shitty calls weekend after weekend after weekend. We just saw the
You're a marketing person. what is the result of all these shitty calls? Is it a result that people are turning the TV off to stop watching football? No, it's not. So,
well, I mean, part of that, depending on how you look at like the age groups and everything, I mean, college football is losing younger generations for sure. Like that,
well,
that is
everything is.
happening.
Everything,
No,
everything
that's
that was
debatable.
established
No.
years ago is losing because the distribution. This is not 1955 where you had 3 channels to watch.
Listen,
So,
Mark, I know you love college football. I do, but like this current model, it's a little bit different. I'm not going to get into it too much, but
the point that I'm making is that
yeah,
you can
I
point
get
to
you.
anything popular in society and everything is diminishing because there are just so many options.
No, I understand that, but there are definitely some differentiating factors that are harming college football right now that are not harming the NFL, high school football, and other things. I mean, that's
And the officiating is the least of those.
okay. Well, that's fine. Well,
And I'm
again,
not
fine.
disagreeing with you that the
No.
officiating shouldn't be better. I'm just saying in
I
terms
got
of
you.
the business of college football,
Yeah,
there
I
are
got you.
far more important issues that are damaging the sport in terms of it sustaining itself than officiating.
Yes, that may be true, but I don't know if those issues are so flagrant and in your face, like slapping you with a stale fish. Like it's egregious. It's stupid. It's
Nobody
stupid.
is not watching football because of bad officiating.
And everybody is watching football because of bad officiating. Where are all of the Twitter memes coming from? Like you see these clowns. If you would press their nose together, that would squeak. That it's ridiculous. These people.
It almost draws more attention to the sport. Everything that can be thrown out there on social media, as you well know, being a marketing person,
Mark,
any publicity is good publicity.
Do you really believe that? Do you really, to your core, believe that?
Well, I don't think that's true in every possible case. But
no. But you just stated that. I mean, seriously, do you really believe that? Be honest. Do you really believe what you just said?
Well, not 100% of the time. No.
Okay, that's my point. So even though it's not a major factor, it can still have a negative impact that doesn't need to necessarily be there. You have the funding to have full-time refs and not have the clown show just the clown show going on. I don't understand why that's so difficult to grasp.
Well, who said I didn't grasp it?
No,
I've said like 8 times that I agree with you, but I've told you that that's not taking a dime out of anybody's pockets, and that's what drives this sport, and that's what makes the world go round.
Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. I got you.
Nobody's turning off TVs because the officiating's bad.
Not disagreeing with that. So, anyway, last couple things here. So I went over you. So you think? Well, let's go through Final Four prediction. I know we went over a couple teams, but we kind of got into the weeds about FSU.
You want my Final Four prediction right this second?
Yes. And I'm not holding you to this.
Oh, I know.
Obviously.
I know.
But
I've already made a Final Four prediction at the beginning of the season, and I don't change it. So I'm not one that changes predictions every week. It's either it's a good prediction or it sucks after 5 weeks, and there's no way it's ever going to happen, kind of thing. I think I said Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Alabama. I think. I believe. So why not stay with that? Although, like you say with Florida State, it appears as though they're going to, if they run the table, they're going to get a bid over the Ohio State Michigan loser.
Yeah, I'm not really into that. So I'll give you mine. I'll go Washington, FSU, Georgia, all undefeated,
Okay.
and then a 1-loss Ohio State.
Okay.
So
So Ohio State is going to lose a game and still make the playoff, and nobody else from the Big Ten is going to make the playoff. How is that going to happen?
because that's what it appears like, what I've seen college football wants.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have doubted that at the beginning of the season, but where we stand right now, I'm not seeing where Ohio State could lose a game, make the playoff, and nobody else from the Big Ten make the playoff.
I guess that's assuming. Well, wouldn't it depend on? So it would depend on how the Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan 1-loss thing plays out.
Yes, Ohio State's already defeated Penn State. So based on your scenario or what you just stated, it sounds like Ohio State's going to lose to Michigan. So how is Michigan not going to make the playoff?
Won't that depend on the Big Ten West?
No. If Ohio State's going to make the playoff under your scenario and they're going to lose a game, they're most likely going to lose that game to Michigan. Then how is Michigan not going to make the playoff?
I thought people were talking about Penn State had, Penn State. I heard Penn State had the whole advantage. As far as
if there's a three-way tie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so you think there's going to be a three-way tie?
Yeah.
You think you're so you?
Well,
think
either through. I don't think just the way this entire thing is going, because it seems like college football wants. I would say three-way tie. I don't think Michigan is going to, on field wise, make the playoffs. Is what I would predict at this point.
So the only way I can see your scenario working is if Penn State beats Michigan and Michigan beats Ohio State, and the committee chooses Ohio State, I guess, because they played Notre Dame and they've got a better schedule than the other two.
Yeah, so that's not crazy. So there you
it's
go.
Not crazy.
Washington, FSU, Georgia, and even if the committee, the college football the college football landscape has labeled Michigan it's just not going to happen. I don't regardless of the facts, right? Because that's not what the whole scandal's about. It's clearly not about the facts because the investigation's not finished. So, to say that the college football playoff committee, the investigation's not going to be done by then. And
No.
to say I don't know. To say that Michigan, even if they were to go undefeated, I still wouldn't think that they would make the college football playoff.
If they go undefeated.
I don't think that's the landscape. That's my personal opinion. So
I'm not but I'm not understanding how Michigan would not make a playoff if they just beat Ohio State. And they're
because
undefeated.
That's the college football landscape right now. You've seen it, right? You're not blind. That's the on-field. It's clear unless something completely changed. What's going on in the college football? And I don't know where people got this whole thing of the NCAA is all of a sudden a legitimate organization. But to think that the NCAA cannot be pressured into making decisions for the college football landscape is ridiculous. Because they've had cases before that should have been judged in a certain way, and they were pressured and fell through. So, and this is just my opinion. People can disagree. I'm okay with that. But it's very clear the college football landscape, on-field results don't matter in as much as sticking to outdated rules.
During the 9 years of the playoff, the records certainly have mattered because nobody has made a playoff spot that has had a worse record than anybody in the playoff. The best records have always made the playoff. And then when there's a tie for the fourth best record, then obviously the committee has to leave someone out. But that has been true for 9 years.
Yeah, but what's happening right now is unprecedented. That's my point.
Yeah, but until they're ruled ineligible, they're going to be eligible to play in the playoffs. So if I'm interpreting between the lines, you believe that Michigan is headed toward a large violation and penalty, and the committee knows that, and they don't want to put them in the playoff regardless of what they do.
Repeat that, please.
That Michigan is on the way to being heavily penalized.
Yes.
And the committee knows this.
I don't know if they know. No, I don't agree with that.
And therefore, they're going to not select Michigan for the playoff. That's the only way I can figure out your outcome in what you just
I don't think it has anything to do necessarily with the penalty. I think it has to do with the college football landscape. Like, I don't know if that doesn't make sense. I don't really know how I can make that more clear. So,
yeah,
my opinion is it'll be Washington, undefeated FSU, undefeated Georgia, and maybe a one-loss Ohio State. So that's where I stand. I don't really see how anybody who has two eyes can look at the way college football is as a landscape and think that Michigan is going to make the playoff. Like, I don't, because the College Football Playoff Committee does not abide by conferences or the NCAA. So I don't know how you can make that connection. That's just my opinion. So
okay. Well, thanks for the call, Nick. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Been on the air for an hour 38. All right, Mike is showing up tonight. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I am doing just fine. How are you?
Oh, can't complain. A lot of people are complaining about the football today. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with the football today. It's not going to go down in history or anything, but I was entertained.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised and impressed with Oregon. Whew.
Yes.
Going into Rice-Eccles, that's a hard place to play.
Yeah, and they made it look easy.
And I'm starting to think that, Bo Nix might be the new front runner for the Heisman.
I kind of had that feeling today myself.
And I hate saying that because, there's always a talk about these days that J.J. McCarthy is leading it, but I can't see him getting it because he just doesn't have those, eye-popping numbers.
Well, he's got 2 games in front of him that are going to be huge.
And, Penn State's defense is good. So, even if he was to throw for like 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, that'd be impressive enough for me. But I don't think it's going to get him on the national stage.
I don't know about that. Not just the numbers, Mike. Think about leading a team down the field down by 4 in the final 2 minutes to win one of those games or both of those games.
Well, that's kind of hard because we've won every game by 30, 40 points. So, you don't get those quote-unquote Heisman moments.
Well, they could be coming. That's what I'm saying.
I'd prefer it if we were just keep beating teams by 5 touchdowns and he sits halfway through the third quarter. But
no.
Well,
I know you would prefer that, but you're the one that brought up the Heisman, and I'm just letting you know how it's conceivable that J.J. McCarthy can win the Heisman.
I think a lot of things would have to fall into place. Some of them already have, with like Caleb falling off, Penix falling off.
I don't think so.
Oh,
those guys are both playing multiple games that they could lose. They could be 9-3 teams at the end of the year.
I don't know about. I know one of them definitely could.
Washington can barely beat Stanford. And this isn't a one-time thing. This is Arizona State, Arizona, Stanford.
I mean, who they got left is really a challenge.
Look at who they've played the last 3 weeks. Are they a challenge? Yes, they've been a challenge. So who would have thought Stanford, Arizona, Arizona State would have been a challenge for Washington? My point is that I don't expect Washington to lose a ton of games. Of course, the season's almost over, but if they go 10-2 and they don't win the Pac-12, they don't go to the playoff, Michael Penix can have all the numbers he wants. And if J.J. McCarthy, with everybody in the nation watching, drives down the field 80 yards in the final 2 minutes against Ohio State and caps off a 20 for 27 day for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and most importantly, throws the game winner to beat Ohio State, nobody's going to care what Michael Penix is doing against Washington State that day.
And you think that if McCarthy has less than 3,000 yards for the season,
I don't think
they're not going to
people
hold
care about 3,000 yards.
You really?
Voting for the high. Maybe I'm giving the Heisman voters too much credit that they actually have a brain in their head, because most of them probably don't. They actually, who cares about 3,000 yards, 2,982 yards? What's it matter?
It just seems like the Heisman voters are always enamored by these gaudy numbers.
Well, that's part of it. That's part of it. But this guy's completing practically 80% of his passes every week, but he's not throwing 45 times. He's throwing 25, 28 times, and he's therefore not throwing for the yardage. But look at his TD to pick ratio, and look at his running ability, and look at his team winning 40-0 every week. Yeah. And then they're going to have the 2 teams in front of them that can justify then all the 40-0 games with 2 quality wins.
Yeah, and plus, Blake Corum is actually, I mean, for all the talk about how our running game has fallen off, I think Blake Corum is still number 1 in the Big Ten in rushing touchdowns.
And those 2 games are going to be watched by tons more people than watch any Oregon or Washington football games.
Yeah, that's true. That's a kind of a bias against the Pac.
More people watched Ohio State and Michigan play than I believe watched anyone's season in the Pac-12. Anybody.
Yeah, I mean, are you talking about like all 12 games?
Yes.
Wow.
It's very close to that. It's not quite, but it's right in that range.
I figured SC, UCLA, because I mean they're the main names of the Pac.
That was the highest rated game in the Pac last year. It did about 3.6 million, and the Ohio State Michigan game did 17.2.
Yeah, I remember the 17 number. I am gonna kind of curious to see what happens though, because I said I think I said on the Pac-12 podcast with Tony and Tim and all them, that if Bo Nix has a good game against Utah and Rice Eccles, he's probably the Heisman front runner, and it looks like that might come to fruition. I'm kind of curious to see how the new numbers pop out. And
yeah, again, anytime the Heisman's brought up, I used to do a lot of Heisman videos, but people ask me who's going to win the Heisman, and my typical response is, how am I supposed to know what other people are going to vote on?
And the other game I really liked today was I was really surprised. I thought that Kansas without Jalen Daniels probably wasn't going to beat Oklahoma, but lo and behold, that Bean guy, that might be the best backup quarterback in college football.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I've said that for a couple of years, that he's in that discussion. Yeah, he's been their starting quarterback at various times in his career.
And that really killed the Big 12's chances of making a playoff, because now you kind of have to hope that Oklahoma and Texas make it back, and then the winner of that one kind of has a few other dominoes fall their way.
Yeah.
Especially if it's Oklahoma beating Texas again.
Yeah.
I think Texas has a little bit better chance if they were to win a rematch, but I think if Oklahoma wins the second game against Texas, they might get left out.
Yeah. Texas has the Alabama win, and the winner of that conference is going to have the weakest resume of anybody that they're competing against. Yeah. It's just a marginal conference. It's just to be kind.
And now, what happens if, in your opinion, if Oregon and Washington both win out, and then Oregon wins the rematch?
Who's going to go to the playoff?
I mean, do you think that? What are the chances of either both of them going or neither one of them going?
A lot would, an enormous amount of results would have to fall the Pac-12's way for them to get two teams in. The Pac-12 just wants to get one team in, which I'm hoping there is a Pac-12 team in the playoff.
I think there should be. I mean, I can honestly see two, especially if things don't go right with Michigan and Ohio State, because I kind of held it against them, because I would say prior to 2 years ago, and I don't even think this is an argument, the Pac was the worst of the Power Fives, and I don't even think it was a close call. Two years ago, and back from there. Now they're probably the best.
Yeah. But being the best conference doesn't always produce the best team. So if Florida State's undefeated and the Big Ten champions in, and if Alabama beats an undefeated Georgia team, the Pac-12 winner could still be 11-2.
Well, that'd take them out. No two-loss team is going to make a 4-team playoff.
No. I thought it was going to happen this year, but it's not shaping up that way.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, it seems like Fresno State might beat out UNLV, because I just want to mention that, I think UNLV, if they were to beat Fresno State and go 7-1, we can stop making fun of them as, some team we roll over that's nothing.
Well, I understand that, but you understand, Mike, on the other hand, how ridiculous it is for a top 5 team in the country to be holding up their win against UNLV as being some linchpin, as the look at us, we beat UNLV. I don't care what their record is. They're playing in the Mountain West. They're a decent team, but this is a game that Purdue should be talking about that they won.
Yeah.
I just randomly picked out Purdue. Think about this. As you mentioned, UNLV's playing Fresno State tonight. Purdue played a game right down to the wire against Fresno State. So this is like Michigan beating Purdue. Just because they got a good record, these teams in the group of 5, there's only a couple of them that should really add any type of cachet to anyone's schedule.
Well, the thing is, I'm not saying that UNLV is some world beater and they're like a potential playoff team or a New Year's Six team. It's just that I'm just tired of the narrative that we only beat the Southwest Rhode Island Techs of the country.
Okay, I get that, but still, I don't even know why you care about it. If Michigan wins the Big Ten, they're going to be in the playoff. So who cares?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just, I don't know, it's just the narrative is just getting all. Plus, the fact that, the entire sports world has just had a collective dogpiling on Michigan over this fiasco with ours. I guess just made some of our fan base sensitive.
Sure. That's understandable. That would happen to every fan base. Every fan base would be sensitive about this. But you also have to understand why people are piling on, because if you take any power, any name brand in the sport, and they were having these issues and these allegations, then people would be piling on.
Oh, well, we need
Especially
something
their
else to
rivals.
talk about. I mean, I'm just getting combat fatigue at this point. And with Google and all this, they save your preferences. So every time I open up YouTube, oh, we got the latest in the Michigan scandal. There is Michigan, blah blah blah. And then now the ones I'm seeing is Michigan get the death penalty. It's like, you guys don't even know what the death penalty is. It's not applicable here, and it just shows how stupid you are. But I mean, it's the internet, so it is what it is. Yeah, this is just me being tired and frustrated.
Yeah, I totally understand it. But you're still, if you're going to watch my channel, which I of course hope that you continue to do, you are going to hear me pick on Michigan's schedule when the opportunity arises. I don't like go on a rampage about it, but when it's brought up, yeah, the schedule's bad. And regardless of what UNLV does, it's still bad. But if Michigan goes out and takes care of business against Penn State and Ohio State, they're the best team in the Big Ten. They should be in the playoff, and they'll be there, and they should be.
Well, when do you usually do your top 25 that makes sense? Is it Mondays or Tuesdays?
I get it out there on Sunday.
Oh, I didn't think you did it on Sundays.
Nope. It's always released on Sunday.
My clock's off. And now I think the recent one we were 3. One was Ohio State, right?
Yes.
And 2 was Florida State?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go on the limb and say top 3 is not going to change.
I've not thought about it, but it shouldn't. No.
Because, I mean, who is 4?
Must have been Georgia.
Okay, so
I believe.
Well, I don't know. That was a decent win, I will say. I mean, I don't think Florida's a world beater, but they were 5-2, and they did beat Tennessee, so that's not exactly up. And they beat them pretty comfortably. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 43-20, and it wasn't even like they widened the gap in the fourth quarter. It was they just beat their brains out pretty early. It was 26-7 at half. It was 26-0, I believe, at one point.
Yeah, it was never in question. Okay, so I'll make sure I'll look for it tomorrow to see where
it will be out tomorrow.
Okay, I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll let some other people hop in.
All right, Mike. Well, thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good night.
You too.
It's our guy, Mike. We appreciate Mike. He's always here. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. But before I take this next call, we've got, who else do we have here? We've got Sean celebrating the Buckeyes victory here in Madtown. That's right. Sean was going to the game. Love all you guys. A little birthday drunk ATM, but I hope you're all enjoying this college football Saturday as much as I am. Cheers. Sean, thank you for that. We'll leave that up for a while. All right, I'll get to the other super chats here in a minute, but I appreciate all of them. But since Sean is a regular and it is his birthday, happy birthday to you. And we'll stop right there because nobody else. My sister did make me sing the entire happy birthday song to her the other day because I called her to wish her a happy birthday, of course. And then she said, "Aren't you going to sing to me?" And I said, "Really? You want me to?" Okay. And I did the whole thing. But I will spare everyone. Maybe Buckeye Mike will sing some happy birthday for us.
How you doing, Mark?
I am doing just fine. How are you?
I don't know. I'm just like over this whole Michigan thing because apparently everybody has a bone to pick with me. There's one play in Ohio State's game that stands out to me that I don't understand why Kyle McCord made that decision.
Okay.
I think we were between the 20 and 30, and we were driving. We were on our side of the field. And
time out.
The
Ohio State was driving, but they were between their 20 and 30 on
the ball.
Okay.
Let me clarify.
Gotcha.
We had the ball.
They had the ball. All right. They weren't driving down the field. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Proceed.
So the pocket proceeds to collapse around Kyle. He steps up into the pocket and then proceeds to move left, I believe, and throws across his body,
Yeah.
or across the field, I should say, into his, I believe it was his first or second interception of the game. I do not understand why you would make that throw. It makes no sense to me.
He threw both of his interceptions in the red zone.
I didn't think he did.
I'm almost positive. Well, he threw one in the end zone for sure. Then
I
the other
remember that.
one, I thought they were inside, let's say, the Wisconsin 30.
Okay, so maybe I was right in thinking
I'll
they were
double check.
driving.
Keep going.
But so
Okay, I would think that you would have more question about the other interception, and this is why. Because the interception that he threw at the pylon, they designed a play that was supposed to free somebody up because everything was going left, and they kind of rolled him. It was almost like a bootleg right, and there was a complete misdirection play that they thought that they would free somebody up to kind of roll with him and he'd have a wide open throw, but they were covered. Harrison was covered and Tate were covered, and they were both in the end zone. And there's a guy just doing a beeline right at Kyle McCord. So he's got to either just try to run, which there's no way. Number one, he can't run. Number two, he certainly couldn't run tonight. He had a limp. And this was before the limp, but still the guy, there's no way he's outrunning a safety or a linebacker. So he's dead to rights. He's got to throw the football. So he can either throw it into the first row and kick a field goal, but he tries to like throw the ball, or he should have lofted the ball to the back pylon and hoped Marvin Harrison could make a ridiculous catch. But he like threw the ball trying to like throw it through people. And the Wisconsin defender made a really nice interception right at the pylon. That one, he could see exactly what's going on. It's all in front of him. He's rolling. There's no offensive line, no traffic in front of him. And he tries to do that. The other one, he got duped on the other one. The safety, Hallman, who's intercepted like a million passes this year, he was way back and he just waited. He was playing a soft zone and then he just broke on the football and picked it off. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking. The defender, in my opinion, I think the defender got covered up or he just didn't see him somehow. And the one that you brought up, yes. Oh my gosh, that was a real. Honestly, I probably, if I was him, I would have probably tried to take off and just slide. That would have been a better option than to do what he did.
Well, I don't remember what the down and well, I know what the down was, but I don't know what it was a third down. I don't know what the distance was, but he wasn't, unless it was only 3 or 4. I think it was there was a reason there were receivers in the end zone. I think I'll look it up, but it might have been 3rd and goal. So running was not going to be a good option.
True. So everybody's opinion, and I kind of wanted to get yours. Everybody's opinion now with the Notre Dame win, the Penn State win, their 2 top 10 wins. They're the 2 best wins for one single team this year compared to the teams in front of Ohio State.
Yep.
Do you think there's a legitimate or reasonable argument for Ohio State to be number 1 this week on Tuesday? Because that's what Goldclatt and everybody else are saying.
Yeah. Well, have you ever seen my rankings?
Yes, I have.
Well, do you know where I have Ohio State ranked right now?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, if you knew where I have Ohio State ranked right now before this Wisconsin game, then you wouldn't ask that question.
My bad.
No, you don't need to watch my rankings. I'm just saying you wouldn't ask that question because you know that I have rankings, and yeah, I've got Ohio State number 1. So do I think that there's a reasonable argument to have them number 1? Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's what people need to understand is like, okay, yes, Michigan has been blowing everybody out, but they still haven't played anybody. And yes, the narrative of haven't played anyone is still there as much as they want it to go away. And Georgia isn't the same as they were last year. And they shouldn't be. So as far as the games go, congrats to Kansas, as I guess everyone's been saying. That was a huge victory.
The interception that you're talking about was at the Wisconsin 36.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead.
I feel like today's action was okay. I don't think, like for me, the noon window only having antenna, I think Oklahoma, Kansas was probably the best game in the noon window. The 3:30 window, obviously the Oregon game. I was actually, I guess, like most people, shocked by Oregon's performance. And speaking of that, I would say right now, probably the 4 I would have in New York would probably be Marvin, Bo Nix, Penix, maybe McCarthy.
Okay. I wouldn't have McCarthy in the Final Four right now until I've seen him play somebody myself.
That's true.
But yeah, I would have no issue with having him there based on how he's performing right now after having seen him play a decent defense. Although I do think that Minnesota's got a pretty good defense and he tore them up. And Rutgers has a decent defense. But a complete team.
Right. Do you think that the way Penn State played today is a sore eye on Ohio State, as some people like to say?
Yes.
And then go ahead.
Ohio State really doesn't have much to worry about because they've taken care of everything that they can possibly take care of, regardless of how ugly the wins are in terms of the scoreboard. Because basically, if they're either going to win the Big Ten championship and they'll be in the playoff, or they're going to lose to Michigan, not make the Big Ten championship. And if there's going to be a non-champion that's going to be in that playoff, it's going to be them. Because they've beaten Penn State, they've beaten Notre Dame, they beat Wisconsin on the road. Nobody else is going to match up to that resume, and they will get a bid above anybody else for a team that doesn't win a conference, if it happens.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So I have this opinion that as of right now, this year to me feels like 2002.
Well,
except I would almost equate that 2002 had a better quarterback.
I guess. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, they're pretty similar, at least, wouldn't you say?
I can about guarantee Kyle McCord's numbers right now are better than Craig Krenzel's were in 2002.
Or what about 07 with Beckman?
if Ohio State doesn't get better quarterback play than Todd Beckman, they're not winning a national championship.
Which is why they didn't win one in 2007. What did you think about the way Colorado played tonight against UCLA?
I think that game went almost exactly the way I expected it to. And the only thing that kept Colorado in the game, like I thought that there were heroic plays by Colorado. Travis Hunter made 2 ridiculous interceptions, just phenomenal plays, not just the athleticism to catch the ball, that he baited the quarterback. He left his man and made a great play on the ball and caught it. He's a remarkable athlete. And Shiloh Sanders is an extremely physical defensive back who made some great plays. They have great individuals, but UCLA's line play just obliterated them. They threw Shadur Sanders around like a rag doll. At the point that I turned the game off, they were only up like 21-9, and they had just gone up 21-9 when I kind of veered away from the end of that game, and they had already had over 20 hits on Shadur Sanders. So the only reason that Colorado stayed in the game was UCLA quarterbacks threw 2 picks. I think Ethan Garbers threw both of them, in which, again, Travis Hunter made ridiculous plays. And then on top of that, Carson Steele had 2 fumbles inside the 10 or 15 yard line. Otherwise, UCLA just, the total yardage on that game at one point was like 460 to 140.
Yeah. So I think you have a stream like earlier or yesterday about the whole Michigan investigation?
Yes.
Like an updated one. Well, I didn't get a chance to catch that. So
we're going to do another one tomorrow.
Oh boy. What are your thoughts on this whole, I guess the firm was like ran or something?
Not to cut you off, Buckeye Mike. Sorry, not to cut you off, but just to save time, I'm not going to say anything about that tonight. We're just going to talk about today's games, and we'll address that tomorrow.
You're good. My bad. With USC winning such a close game, would you be surprised, not to hurt USC fans' feelings, but would you be surprised if they're not in the top 25 on Tuesday? Or do you think they've done enough to still be in?
I have such little respect for the AP top 25. I could care less who's in the top 25. It makes no difference to me. Like, I don't care. I think many of them do a great job, and many of them do a horrible job at selecting the teams in the top 25. So I don't know what to tell you. I have no respect for that top 25 poll, or little respect. I have respect for certain individuals that are voting, that do a good job, but the culmination of the poll is wildly inconsistent and pathetic much of the time. So I don't know how to answer that question, except, I don't. I would think that USC should care less whether they're number 24 or they're out of the poll, because they're going to have to play Oregon and Washington anyway. And so that is going to vault them high into the rankings if they win those games. And if they lose those games, they're going to drift out of the rankings regardless.
That makes sense. Well, off the top of my head, I think that's all I have. Just everybody make sure to sub to all the channels. Join the Discord if you got the money to be able to. I know it's only like $5. Join the Discord. Everybody talks football all the time. And join the Patreon and just sub to everything around here. Mark does awesome work, and we got to keep pushing.
Thanks, Buckeye Mike. Have a good night. Appreciate it.
You too.
All right. Let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Let me get to Buckeye Mike's point about Kyle McCord playing on the level of Craig Krenzel. McCord did throw 2 picks tonight, so he's got 3 this season. I don't know that anyone that roots for Ohio State would be happy with him throwing 10 picks this year, because he would have to throw another 7 to reach Craig Krenzel territory. 15 touchdowns and 10 picks, 2,000 yards, 55% passing. Now, we could go through a whole discussion about equating the numbers in 2002 to current standards, etc. Certainly. Let's go to Kevin here at the Voice of College Football. Kevin, how you doing? All right. Kevin did not want to join us. All right, let's keep it moving. Go Dogs! What's going on tonight?
Mark, can you hear me okay?
I can.
You are such a beautiful man for doing this so late into the evening. I really appreciate it. And I just want to ask you one question. How about them Dogs, baby? They look so good today.
How about them?
No Bowers, no problem. And Carson Beck had another amazing day. I feel so good about Georgia. And
you should.
If anyone out there wants to change your opinion about how that Missouri game is going to go next week, it's not too late. So
why are there people out there that think Missouri's going to pull off an upset?
Oh, of course.
On the road?
Everyone that is woefully misinformed about the level of talent on Georgia's roster and thinking that Brock Bowers was going to be the end all be all. Yes, they are picking Missouri to upset Georgia. And for that matter, they're pointing to Ole Miss and Tennessee as well.
Well, I think that it's the nature of humans to want to bring down the team that's obviously the champion. So they're looking for an opportunity to do that. And then they want to be the ones that said, I told you so.
The 2-time champions, Mark.
Yes, the 2-time champions.
It was such a clean game. I've seen Georgia turn the ball over quite a few times, and it was such a clean game today. They had no fumbles, no turnovers. They had 2 penalties, but they were purposefully taken on punting downs to lengthen the field. It was, their defense played great. And I got 4 names I want to give you: Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard, Malachi Starks, and Kamari Lassiter. Man, those guys are the gang in our secondary. They are so damn good.
Well, I'm certainly familiar with all of them, but they are really good players. I'm sure you're more familiar than I am. I didn't see, even though that was one of the 3:30 games I was going to watch, because I cut videos after each broadcast window. I usually don't catch up to the 3:30 games until almost halftime. And so I shied away from that one since you had it under control at that point.
Well, the Cliff Notes version is Florida scored in their opening drive, went up 7-0. Then Georgia rattled off 36 unanswered points, and the final score was 43-20. Okay. Florida was able to add a touchdown in the last few minutes.
Yeah, but I am familiar with all that, and I was happy since I picked Georgia to cover the spread that they did that as well.
Well, you're a smart man, Mark, so I'm not surprised about that. And the upcoming college football playoff rankings on Tuesday, I'm pretty confident I know exactly what they're going to be. I think Ohio State's going to be number 1.
Really?
I think Michigan.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. They have easily the best resume right now, and they're undefeated. If they're not number 1, I'm going to look at that first ranking a little bit sideways, to be honest with you. I think Michigan's going to be number 2. I think Florida State's going to be number 3, and I think Georgia's going to be number 4. That's where I see it going. But there's a lot of people today. Moving on from Georgia, there's a lot of people that are getting on Dabo Swinney's case. And I just got to tell everyone, just leave Dabo alone, okay? He knows what he's doing, all right? He told us all a couple of weeks ago that they had to lighten up the bandwagon, okay? So They are still going to lose next week to Notre Dame because the quote, to refresh your memory, Mark, I'm sure you don't need it, but for everybody else, he said, maybe we need to lose a few games. Well, they've
Yep.
only lost 2 since then. That's a couple. A few technically is 3. So they're going to lose 1 more, and then they're never going to lose again. Dabo Swinney knows what he's doing. Leave him alone.
Yeah, well, his legacy is forever entrenched. He has no worries there. But about his current program, I think it's about time to have a discussion on that and figure out what's wrong with it. Besides not going to the transfer portal, that would be one.
In all seriousness, that statement from that press conference after, I think it was they beat, I think, Wake Forest 17-12 or something like that, and that was he made that comment at some point during the week after that win. That's how much do you think he regrets saying that? And by the way, how come nobody is asking him about it in his post-game press conferences?
Well, I'm going to conjecture that he's got a large extent most of that media in his hip pocket, and they are not the toughest media you're ever going to encounter, would be my guess.
Yeah, I don't think the beat writers for many teams are, hard-hitting questioners. So you're probably right about that. Hey, how about the nerds of Georgia Tech getting the win over UNC tonight?
Yeah, how about that?
That was crazy.
Yeah. Put up a couple points against you guys in a month.
A couple, 2.
Okay.
We'll give them a safety off the bat, maybe.
Okay.
What else we got? Oh man, the Kansas and Oklahoma game. How much of that did you watch?
Watched it all.
What did you think? I mean, okay, so Kansas is trying to go up with 6 minutes left, and the backup quarterback, I think his name is Bean, is that right? Or
Jason Bean.
Yeah. He took that slide at the 1-yard line and was so lucky to get bailed out by the personal foul targeting penalty that was called on that, because he almost put him in a 4th down spot.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm happy for Kansas they got the win, but that could have been a very regrettable decision. So that was a close one, but good win for Kansas, and I'm happy for them. I don't know what else is going on. What else happened today? What was your favorite game of the day? My
favorite game of the day? Well, that Kansas-Oklahoma game I found extremely entertaining. My favorite game of the day, I guess we'll stay with that one. I did not see Georgia Tech and North Carolina. It looks like a crazy game. I didn't watch it. But Miami and Virginia almost pulled off an upset against Miami. I watched the end of that game in overtime.
Yeah, that was I haven't actually seen any of that game, but I've been surprised by Virginia's apparent resurgence in the last couple of weeks. After starting out so slowly, they have proven themselves to be a team that anyone on their schedule for the rest of the year should take seriously if they weren't already.
Absolutely.
Oh God, that USC defense, Mark. What the hell is going on there?
Well, I only saw about the last 5 or 6 minutes of that game, so I only saw the USC offense score a couple touchdowns to tie the game and then win the game. So I didn't get to see how bad they were, but it's pretty apparent giving up 49 points to Cal, which I don't know if Cal scored 49 points this season. That tells you everything right there.
Yeah, I think I mean, this is a team that scored 10 points at home against Auburn to open up the season.
Yes.
And now they're putting up 49 points. Should have been 50 if we're being honest, but put up 49 points in regulation against USC. And I know a lot of Trojans want Alex Grinch gone.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think Lincoln Riley wants to get rid of Alex Grinch because there's no one left to blame after he loses Grinch and that defense doesn't improve, which it will not, because it's not an Alex Grinch problem. It is a Lincoln Riley problem.
So I would agree with you there in regards to, yes, it's an Alex Grinch problem, but it's the man in charge who's responsible for allowing it. So that would be one Lincoln Riley. And we're looking at a USC defense that gave up 527 yards of total offense today and gave up 5.6 yards per carry and 5 rushing touchdowns.
Oh, that was another point I actually wanted to bring up. I'll go back for just a minute to the Georgia Tech UNC game, but Georgia Tech had how many rushing yards in the fourth quarter? It was like 250. It was insane. In just the fourth quarter, Georgia Tech had nearly 250 rushing yards. And I guess that was a tribute to Paul Johnson coming back to Bobby Dodd to be presented with his induction into it's not the college football, some Hall of Fame. I don't know if it's like the College Football Hall of Fame, but something to that degree. But they honored his legacy by running all over UNC in the fourth quarter. It was insane. But going back to USC, that they still have Oregon and Washington on their schedule later on this year. Do they not?
Yeah. And don't forget UCLA.
Oh,
They
yeah.
can-
I
can
won't
lose
forget.
that
I
game, too.
did, but thank you for reminding me. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that would say, hey, if they didn't have this player, they wouldn't be any good. But Caleb Williams is definitely making all the difference on that team right now, between them being I can't even say a good team, but he has made the difference certainly in a majority of their wins, because I mean, how many weeks has it been now? It's been since week 4, I think, that I don't think that they've won a game by more than a touchdown since week 4 in the games that they have won.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So I will.
Technically, they beat Arizona State by 2 touchdowns. Okay, if we want to get it was a 1-score game with 7 or 8 minutes left, and then they won by 2.
Right.
And Cal actually entered this game as the 81st ranked offense in the country in yards per play.
Oh my goodness. That's, hey, at least it's better than Iowa. That's probably better than what I was putting up. So got to give it to him there. Mark, what is it? Would you agree with me if I said that the 2 best wins of the year thus far were the Buckeyes over Notre Dame and Florida State's crushing of LSU? Do you believe that those are the 2 best wins on any team's resumes so far?
No. I think they're close. They're very close. So I would say that
Texas over Bama?
Yeah, in Tuscaloosa by 2 scores. I would give that the nod.
Would your opinion change if LSU beats Alabama next week?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Mark, again, thank you so much for being the man to do this and giving me an excuse to stay up well past my bedtime.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Call back anytime, man.
All right, man. Later.
All right. Good to hear from the SEC. Good to hear from Go Dogs. More SEC talk. We got Jackson here. Jackson loves and, of course, knows all of college football. But, of course, being an Alabama fan is the only reason I say that. Jackson, what's going on tonight?
It's going pretty good, Mark. How's it going with you, man?
It's going well.
I was thinking about your top 25 that actually make sense rankings for tomorrow. I've got
Yeah.
a feeling North Carolina's out of them tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think they've
I
taken
mean,
yeah.
you can't be losing to Virginia and Georgia Tech and
No,
expect to get
that's
a lot of
pretty much
respect.
done it for them. Yeah. They've taken a
I
free
mean,
fall from like number 4 to gone. Yep.
knowing Georgia Tech, they'll probably just play down to Virginia and go, we're the top, and then they'll go down against Virginia. But in all seriousness, though, because I was, having fun for a few seconds, I want to show you something from your friend Steve Helwick. He talked a little bit about Central Florida
Yeah.
and the AAC.
Yeah.
What would they look like if they were in the AAC this year?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I was thinking about this. They've been having like a 5-game losing streak this year.
Can you put that up there, or do I need to do that?
Oh, I did. I
What
put it up.
what in
The
terms of putting it on the screen?
the tweet. I
I
put
can
it
do
on
that.
the screen. Yes.
Well, it's not on the screen. I can put it up there, I believe.
There it is.
There we go.
Yes. He was talking about random thought. How would this year's UCF team
Can you
own
blow
5
that
big
up?
fair in the AAC?
Yeah.
They were in the AAC title game last December with similar cast of contributors, but
Yeah. Are you
I'm
able to blow that up?
blow it up. Well, I'll be honest. They look pretty sloppy
Can you
this
blow
year.
up the picture?
But picture, let
Yeah.
me see.
There we go. All
That
right.
good?
So what's he got? UCF 0-5 in the Big 12, fair in the AAC. So what does he have to say about that?
Well, because this year, I have no idea, but I'm just kind of like they've looked pretty bad this year.
Yeah.
I'm thinking they would be a 6-win team or a 5-win team if they were still in the AAC.
Well, what are they right now? A 3-win team, right?
Right.
Well, just grab somebody's schedule and look at it to see how many games you think they would have won out of that schedule. So if we give them Navy's schedule, for example.
Oh, they'd fall apart against Navy.
Let's
Good
see,
grief.
Navy. So Navy in conference has played Memphis. So UCF at Memphis, UCF against South Florida, North Texas, Charlotte, Temple, UAB, East Carolina, SMU, Army. Isn't UCF maybe going to go 6-2 against the American Conference? That kind of schedule?
Yeah, I could see that, especially, but they'll probably lose that one game they shouldn't. Knowing
Sure.
Malzahn, he does that a lot, and that definitely hurts him. I mean, but hurts Central Florida more because they gave this guy a contract extension a few weeks back, and that's not a good look right there.
Yeah, I think they'd go 6-2 in the conference. That's my estimation.
Yeah, and next Saturday they'll be playing Cincinnati, another team that just has fallen apart. I mean, I don't know what's up with them. I mean, they got some great stats, but stats don't tell everything with Cincinnati because they've lost 6 straight games, including tonight against Oklahoma State.
Well, I think it was pretty well known that Cincinnati wasn't going to be anything close to what they've been under Luke Fickell, number one. And number two, again, this is why I say all the time in trying to rank teams, and people get on me for not ranking as many group of 5 teams as they believe that I should. There's no comparison between the group of 5 and the power 5.
Right. But I just don't.
These teams just didn't turn out to like Houston, BYU, UCF, and Cincinnati. Between the 4 of them, it's not like they all just got a tons worse this year. They're just playing different schedules.
Well, I will say though, BYU's having the best year out of all those 4 thus far.
Yeah, they're what, 5-3.
Yup.
Yeah,
But-
but what are they in the conference? What are they, like 2-3?
Yes.
So
They have been they've been better than those three compared, but next week, what do you think about Neil Brown's seat? Do you think he cooled his seat off after that victory over Central Florida?
well, he's going to cool his seat by winning any games. I think he probably needs to go at least 7-5 to keep his job.
Yeah, because I mean he can't be going sits and sits. That's a bad look.
I wouldn't think so.
No, 8-4 would be great. He's definitely getting a vote of confidence with that kind of record. And what do you think about Iowa State? What do you think about them?
Well, I
Right.
think they are an example of how mediocre the Big 12 is. But I give them a ton of credit because they lost their starting quarterback. They lost their best running back, of course, with the betting scandal and some other pieces to that team. And Matt Campbell has fooled us all and put together a pretty good team this year.
Oh man, I've been impressed with them.
Yeah.
They're going to be catching Kansas in a trap next Saturday because I mean, Kansas could be celebrating a little bit. They're going to Ames, Iowa. That's always a scary place for those that are coming off a big win.
Yeah. That's no joke.
Yeah. And I was looking at the rest of the Big 12. So I'm looking at a 5-way tie for first place.
Yeah. It's crazy. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we got the defending Big 12 champs, Kansas State, up there. And of course, got Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. They've had a tremendous turnaround after they're getting smacked by South Alabama and losing to Iowa State. I mean, those Kansas schools, they're like, do not have Oklahoma State on your bad side. And I remember looking on Twitter spaces of Oklahoma State fan bases, and they were none too happy with Coach Gundy. I wonder if their attitudes changed a little bit since the winning streak has started.
Yeah, they're fans. So, yes, their attitudes have changed.
Well, I hope their attitudes have changed even more next Saturday, especially in that last edition of the Bedlam for the time being. So, and shockingly, West Virginia has somewhat of a say. They're 3-2 in conference play. That's wow. We got a wild race in the Big 12.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I'm impressed with the slate next week for the Big 12. Oklahoma State, Texas, Kansas State, and Kansas, Iowa State. That's pretty big right there.
Yeah, it's going to be a big week.
Yeah. Well, Mark, thank you for having me on.
Of course,
and you have a
Jack.
good night and sleep well. And I'm looking forward to your top 25 that actually makes sense tomorrow afternoon.
I appreciate it, Jackson. Have a good night.
You too. And I know North Carolina's not in it.
And we got what appears to be our last caller of the night. Here we go. We got Michigan Man.
What's up, Mark?
What is going on?
Hey, man, too bad we can't talk about the new tidbits that coming out tonight, man.
No, let's not do that.
I'm sure you've seen it, but it's getting interesting. I'll say that.
I have not seen anything.
Dang.
I don't need to be reading about that kind of stuff on a college football Saturday. So,
Well, do you have a call and show about that tomorrow?
yes.
Okay.
Tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern time.
I'm gonna talk about football, but hey, man, let me just say, when you get out the show, man, it's getting real interesting up in here. But so, man, I'll talk about Ohio State first.
Okay.
They got a real good defense, no doubt about it. Arguably their best defense since 2019, I'd say.
Yep.
Man, that offense is, to me, is average at best. I know you probably don't agree.
No, I don't agree, but I get your point. If we were going to take all the offenses in the country, I'm taking Ohio State over the whatever the most average. I would would not take half of the offenses in the country over Ohio State's offense. No.
Okay, yeah. Well, in that aspect, yeah, I agree with you. I guess when I say average, I'm saying like they're nowhere near elite. They're good, I guess, but they're not like. I'll put it like this: I have never seen an offense. I shouldn't say that. This offense is so focused on one player for the most part. To me, which is Marvin Harrison Jr., which you should. I mean, he's arguably the best player in the country.
Yep.
But it is so hyper focused on one player. I'm trying to think of another offense that I can remember where literally it's boom or bust with one guy.
Well, I've seen offenses that were much more hyper focused than this one, but I totally get your point. You're right. I said it tonight at one point. I think I tweeted it. I don't remember, or maybe I said it when I did my Ohio State recap, but they have to have other guys emerge in the passing game or they're going to be toast. They just can't continue like that. And Ibuka's been hurt. He was an All-American to start the season and caught 74 balls last year. So without him, they need Carnell Tate. Of course, Cade Stover didn't do anything tonight. I don't know why. They need other players to step up. Regardless of how good Marvin Harrison Jr. is, they can't rely on one pass receiver.
I made a joke to someone. Now, obviously, this is like, complete. It's a joke. But I said that they're one Marvin Harrison injury away from looking like Iowa. Yeah, because the production out of it, okay, so they do need Ibuka back 100%. But man, like I don't think I've seen a game this year, maybe outside Purdue and like some of the non-conference, where it's not a 3-quarter struggle the whole time of just trying to move the ball. Let's go through it all. Maryland 3-quarter struggle. Penn State, they got a really good defense, so I mean that is what it is. But that's a 3-quarter struggle. Notre Dame. Really a 4-quarter struggle. Purdue's the only Power 5 team that they relatively can move the ball against. I mean,
but I think you're comparing them to their previous standard, and if they're the 21st rated, I'm looking at the numbers right now, the 21st rated offense in the country, and they've played an extremely difficult schedule.
Yeah, no, look, obviously they got the 2 best wins in the country. But if you look at the numbers, and I don't like to look at a lot of the total numbers because that can be deceiving. If you just look at this team, especially through the first 3 quarters of these games, it's a struggle bus. A lot of those numbers are coming in the 4th quarter, Mark. A lot of them. Most of them, I would argue, are coming in the 4th quarter, later in the second half. So my question is now, luckily you got a great elite defense, but what happens if I'm not confident if this team falls behind 2 scores. I'm not confident this team falls behind 17 points. Are you in the first half?
Well, statistics tell us that we shouldn't be confident in anyone falling behind by 17 points.
I want to. Okay, if they were playing Georgia, Michigan, hell, Oregon. I just wouldn't be I wouldn't be comfortable going into that game, especially even if they go down 10 points. This offense is so slow out the gate. I just have a hard time seeing them, if they fall behind, really competing in those games. And Kyle McCord, I even talk about this. Have you seen a dude try to throw away the ball the way he does? The way he tries to throw the ball away. It's like it feels like he have a potential grounding penalty almost every game. I don't know if anyone's brought that up.
Just because he throws it away inside the tackle box?
It's just, it's like he's had these like throughout the year, all year. He'll obviously he got pressure. He's still in the tackle box, but he like throws it either short of the scrimmage of the line of scrimmage, or he throws it nowhere near a receiver, and he's still in the tackle box.
Well, for one thing, tonight, I'm trying to think at what point in the game it was. He obviously couldn't move after a certain point in the game.
I mean, he had that good third down run. I think that might have been where he got. Was that where he got his limp?
Yeah, I think that's where they figured out he got hurt.
Yeah, man. Kyle McCord, man. He is what he is at this point. Don't you agree?
Yeah, he's probably not going to progress that much this season until the off season.
Because a lot of that work, like your release, your accuracy, that's a lot of off season.
Yeah, they don't want to mess around with giving him or anybody else too much to think about.
Oh, 100%. It was good. It was good to get Travion back. The thing with Travion kind of reminds. I think he's played a lot better than Donovan Edwards this year. I don't even think it's debatable. But he reminds me of Donovan Edwards in the sense that if he's not getting into space, or if he's not getting through that initial crease, it's like no gain.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So let me ask you, would you be confident playing? I'm not even bringing up Michigan, but would you be confident in Ohio State playing like Georgia? We'll go team about Georgia tomorrow. Would you even be confident in that game?
Would I be confident? I would not be surprised if they won the game.
I just don't see it
whatsoever.
Here's how I look at Ohio State. They got an A+ offense and a C, an A+ defense and a C offense. To me, Georgia has a. You can make an argument Ohio State is a better defense. They performed better, I would say, than Georgia's defense this year. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So you could say Georgia has like an A defense, but they have like a B+ to A offense.
Yeah. Well, Georgia has also struggled against teams that aren't anywhere close to the teams Ohio State has, quote unquote, struggled against.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true.
Ohio State hasn't struggled against a team the likes of Auburn or South Carolina.
That's true, but I think the past 3 weeks, Georgia's like hitting their stride. That's a difference here. With Ohio State, I don't see the improvement on offense at all.
Oh, I see improvement on offense. They can run block now.
Oh man. I mean, to me, Travion.
They were run blocking against a really good front tonight.
You talking about Wisconsin? The run. How many yards did they have? I mean, they probably had over 100, I would assume. But how many yards was it?
Oh, they had way over 100. Travion Henderson had 162 by himself.
Yeah, he had 162. I mean, he had that long run at the end of the game, but for the most part, I mean, there was a lot of tackle for losses, a lot of tackles at the line of scrimmage. Is it somewhat better? Yeah, but it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. And Kyle McCord, I don't see any improvement. Do you see any improvement there? If anything, he regressed tonight. But do you see any
Well, I did before tonight's game. I saw improvement.
But it's mostly. Would you agree? It's mostly fourth quarter that you see it.
Because before tonight, there was the first whatever it was 4 games that he was checking down way too much, and now maybe he's forcing too many. But I don't know what he was doing down near the goal line when he was trying to throw the ball through 2 people near the line. But
that's when you should throw it away.
Yeah,
that's when you should throw the ball away.
Yeah,
I want to
take a field goal. Yeah, they weren't playing a scoring fest. Field goals were important, and he threw away a few.
Oh yeah, 100%. Penn State, man. There's not too much more to say about Ohio State. I mean, we're gonna see, man. I don't see them beating Michigan at this point. But in terms of Penn State, man, that lack of explosiveness is really starting to show up.
Yeah.
He had that one, that great touchdown towards the end of the game to, put him ahead finally.
Yeah, they chucked it up there. And that was it wasn't a beautifully thrown. It was a good throw. It wasn't a great throw because the receiver actually once I saw the replay really adjusted. Keandre Lambert-Smith really adjusted well to the ball. It wasn't a great throw, but it was a decent throw.
Yeah, no doubt. But that offense, man, whoo. It's really is like that when they talk about that yards per play stat.
Yeah.
They mirrored that yard per play stat when you watched them. It's like watching paint dry, man. It's like 2 yards, 3 yards. Every once in a while they might get 10. It's hard to watch that offense. And you know what? I think Penn State fans, they may have taken Clifford for granted a little bit, man. I'm just saying.
I know. I used to defend that guy to the hilt.
He had heart. He can move on his legs.
Well, Penn State going into this game this afternoon, they were 95th in the country in yards per play.
It's bad, man. It's bad.
And for as bad as Ohio State's been, so Michigan was 13th and Ohio State was 21st in the country in yards per play, and Penn State's 95th.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad. And that's something that shows up when you start playing the better defenses.
Yeah, and just so like I think I said to you last week, if Penn State plays the way that they did in Columbus, even though they're at home against Michigan, they're going to lose like 31-10.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm sad I didn't see my team play. I hope the committee doesn't do something crazy. I don't think they will. I know that caller earlier I don't know what he was saying. He was confusing me. I thought he was confusing you too when he was. I don't know what he was saying, but
yeah, he was. I was supposed to read between the lines something there.
Yeah, I think what he was trying to say was, I think what he was trying to say was that the committee may decide not to put them in because of the image, I guess, is what he's trying to say.
And at one point in the conversation, I said that, and he said, like, he didn't act like I hit his point. So I don't know what he was going for. And by the way, Ohio State, if you take away Kyle McCord's sack yardage, they ran for 201 on 36 carries.
Yeah, look, Travion Henderson.
They ran for over 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, look, the Travion Henderson, he has those breakout runs, but for the most part, when you watch the line of scrimmage, to me, I'll put it like this: they don't have an elite running game they definitely don't have an elite running game. They have a decent to good running game. I'll say it's not nothing that you like going into the game like, oh my, like you're scared of that running game, if that makes sense. Like, oh man, we got.
Well, I don't know how many teams have that.
No, for sure. I would be more scared of Michigan's running game than I would be of Ohio State's, for example. I'd be more scared of Georgia's. Well, they don't have the best running game, but they utilize it in different ways to get it. What were we just talking about? Oh, the committee thing. I'm gonna wait on like a week. This next week's gonna say a lot. I'm not trying to talk about that, but I'm saying like to see what Tuesday. Is that when the rankings come out? Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. Oh, which by the way, since we got a lot of people on here, or a decent amount of people, with the committee coming out with their first selections on Tuesdays, what we do every year, we'll start doing it this Tuesday, is we'll be live while the committee's making its selections announcement. So we'll just be here live, watch it together, and then start taking calls.
Oh, 100%. Did you see the pictures around the Big Ten of Michigan fans in the stand? Did you see that?
No.
There's Michigan fans in the stands with clipboards.
Oh,
okay. It's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. There's a picture of the guy that has his phone on his hat, and he's holding a phone in his hand. He's got a clipboard under his arm. It's getting out of control out here, man. It's getting out of control.
Nice.
But I'm gonna call in tomorrow, man, because there's gonna be some news dropping in terms of certain things that It's going to raise a lot of questions. I'll just say that.
Okay. All right.
It becomes
Looking forward to it.
near you.
Yeah, give us a call and
What time is that?
clear things up for us. 5 o'clock
Eastern, right?
Eastern. Yes.
Okay. Man, I'll see you then.
Thanks, man. Have a good night.
All right.
Michigan man on the line. Yeah. I see enough on social media. I don't have to see anymore, but I can imagine people have that is what's funny, and that's what's great about college football. That's what's great about sports, and you see it just beyond sports, just people having fun with stuff like that, and people come up with some stuff that makes me laugh. There's no doubt about that, including Uncle Rico, who often says things that at least make me smile here. Uncle Rico says, to be fair, we, meaning Ohio State, haven't known all of our opponents' play calls this season. Nick, there we go. Nick, we love you, Mark. Appreciate you providing a platform for us. Nick, thank you so much for calling. Nick always calls with a lineup of topics that certainly are off the beaten path. They're intriguing. They're interesting. They cause me to think, challenge me. So I just didn't get his, Nick, I just didn't totally get your point with the committee. Or I got it, was expressing it back to you, and maybe I didn't do that too effectively. But I always appreciate your calls and appreciate your insight as well. Uncle Rico, I know you're only half joking. I kind of picked up on that. Brian, thank you so much for being here as well. Wait till you find out who hired the firm. Yeah. I'm sure that would be known. Now, in any way, would that change the outcome of their findings? Does it matter? Does it matter who hires the firm? As long as this is within the rule book of the NCAA, however they acquire the information. So, makes no difference to me. I could care less. I just want the proper information to be known and to be reviewed, and then the judgment to be in line with the truth. I just want to know the truth. Did they cheat? Is everybody else cheating? That's all I want to know. I could sum this up very easily. And when I say cheat, I'm not talking about stealing signs during play. I made a tweet tonight, and I didn't even know necessarily who I was targeting, because after the Ohio State, so I'm watching 3 games at the same time. After the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, it went directly to some kind of post-game show on the local NBC channel. And there was somebody that started talking about, and this is a very well-known athlete, started talking about the bettings or the scouting sign stealing scandal, and obviously had no idea what they were talking about, didn't know what the criteria was, and was just like, well, they were stealing signs and everybody steals signs, so what's the problem, kind of thing. It's like, okay, just why is this person talking? It has nothing to do with the actual stealing the signs. That's not the issue. It's the length and the approach that was taken, the operation to steal the signs, to take the signs, to observe the signs, and do all that at the location in which it was done, with the mode of operation in which was used. That's the issue. All right, this whole everybody steals signs, okay, if it can be proven that other schools are going to campuses on site in stadiums of their opponents and scouting and recording, then yes. If everybody needs to be investigated, I don't care. It makes no difference to me. Doesn't impact me. then everybody then just decide, okay, well, since everybody's stealing signs and everybody's going to the length of going to campuses to opponents' games to steal the signs, then either we need to just penalize everybody, or we need to change the rule. There we go. All right. So, Brian, yeah, wait till you find out who hired the firm. Again, I can probably guess. Brian says, imagine if the firm got the information illegally, and how do you think the NCAA and the Big Ten feel about a school hiring a firm? Again, how do I feel about it? I think it's pretty obvious. If the NCAA is using information given to them by a firm, that pretty much answers the question of how they feel about receiving that information from that firm. Otherwise, they would deny the firm. They would deny access of that information and say, we don't approve of your approach in receiving and handing over that information, so we are not using your information. Just like in a court of law, there is certain protocol that makes certain facts and information allowable in court, and others that, even though the information is still the information and extremely valid, it's not allowable in a court of law based on the mode in which it was received. So I'm guessing, unless something completely changes, that if the NCAA is investigating Michigan based on the information that they received from that firm, then they have no issue with the way in which that information was received, unless they are finding this out later. Okay. As Uncle Rico was saying, exactly, they clearly have no problem where they got it because they are proceeding with the investigation. Yes. And then if we would find out, let's say, if we would find out tomorrow that they just found out where this was received or how it was first received, then that completely changes the investigation. Nick, thank you so much for that. We appreciate your contribution. And Nick is reminding everyone and reminding me to remind all of you that the Amazon link's in the description section of all the videos. It's right there for you. So, Exploring with Ben, thank you so much for that, Ben. Ben, of course, hosted tonight's Oregon postgame, and I'm sure he did so with a big smile on his face after the Ducks completely annihilated the Utes. But so you don't need to buy the product displayed. Let's understand that. You're going to see something on there, a hover helmet. You just go about your shopping. Doesn't cost you a penny. Same shopping experience. And if it's not, you know what? Call me and tell me about it. But we've had all sorts of people try this. They say they don't even know they're there in that manner. TF, good to see you, man. And yes, let's not dive into this Michigan stuff. We're going to be back here Sunday, 5 o'clock Eastern time. So later today at 5 Eastern, after I get my top 25 that actually makes sense, after I watch the Red Zone during the Bewitching Hour, got to get those in. I always wrestle with, do I stay up right now and do the top 25 that actually makes sense? Or do I do it after I get home from church tomorrow, which will be about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because I usually go out to lunch. So it's most likely going to be tomorrow afternoon that we're going to release the top 25 that actually makes sense. Maybe to provide more emphasis in the future, we will change it to the top 25 that actually makes a hell of a lot of sense, or something like that. We'll see if people enjoy ripping on that. Okay. Although I got to say, the more we do it, the more people say, you know what, Mark, I finally get it. And that's fine. I understand when, especially early in the season, when you look at a top 25 and you see, Maryland and Kansas and Oregon State and whoever, Louisville, all over your top 10. You're like, what's going on? All right. Anything else from you fine folks? I think I may have missed a few in the chat. Let's get to those. Uncle Rico, thank you for that. Travion Henderson is averaging 6.7 yards per carry. Blake Corum is averaging 5.4. And of course, Travion Henderson has done that against better defenses. Notre Dame, Wisconsin. Donovan Edwards is averaging 3.2 yards per carry. Yes, against no one. Good point, Uncle Rico. Absolutely. Michigan has a reputation of having a dominant running game from last season. But if we're judging them based on this season, not so much. Nebraska, Rutgers, Minnesota have good run defenses, decent run defenses. And yes, we already looked at that. So thank you for that, Uncle Rico. And Nick reminding us again that the Amazon link's in the description section of the videos. Also keep in mind that we've got a Discord link that you can talk college football all the time, 24/7, 365. So you get the Discord link by joining us at either on Patreon, or since we're all right here on YouTube, you can sign up right here. I believe it's $2.99 a month. I believe. I might be wrong on that. I think that's the case. You can sign up here. You get my picks. Let's look at my picks. How'd I do today? I don't even know. Let's see. I'll probably show you my picks and regret that I'm showing them because I really don't know how well I did. What do we got here? We've got, okay, against the spread, took Florida State to cover 20.5. I got that right, 1-0. I took Kansas +9, got that right, 2-0. Took Penn State to cover 31, not quite, 2-1. I took Virginia +19. They went to overtime, 3-1. Took Duke +6.5 with Riley Leonard back at quarterback, 3-2. Took West Virginia +7. Got that right, 4-2. Took Nebraska -1.5, 5-2. Took Utah +6.5 at home, 5-3. Took Georgia to cover 2 touchdowns. That's a win, 6-3. This is the one that when I went back, man, what the hell was I thinking there? I thought for sure that I took Notre Dame to cover 20.5, but apparently I didn't. So there we go. What is that, 6-4? And then BYU let me down late, and they didn't cover. So that's 6-5. And USC. Why would I have any confidence in USC? I just thought Cal's so bad. And then when they went up, anyway, I won't go into it. I think, yeah, they went up 50-43. I thought, oh, they get a stop here. They can cover. Where are we? I've lost track. 6-6. Anyway, we'll go through it. Oh, this hurts. Kentucky lost by 6. I got the 4. Stanford +27.5. They covered. Colorado +15.5. They covered. Wisconsin +14.5. Woo! That barely covered. Vandy. I don't think they covered. I think Ole Miss blew their doors off. I know I saw 33-7. There was a lost game tonight. Who was watching Ole Miss and Vandy? I know that was on the SEC network. Let's see a final score. I'm sure somebody's already put it in the chat. It was 33-7. Crap. Missed that by 1.5. Took Georgia Tech in 12. Of course, they covered. Oregon State did not cover. They lost straight up to Arizona. So it looks like I went about 500. 1-1, 1-2, 2-2, 3-2, 4-2, 4-3, 4-4, 4-5, 4-6, 5-6, 5-7, 6-7, 7-7, 7-8, 8-8, 8-9, 9-9, 10-9. Money line, I went 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 8-1, 9-1, 10-1, 11-1, 11-2, 12-2, 13-2, 14-2, 15-2, 15-3, 15-4. 15-4 money line. All right. What are we going to stay up all night? Is that what we're going to do? All right. It is 3 a.m. Eastern time. Have a great night, everyone. Get some sleep. And we will be back with the top 25 that actually makes sense. And we are going to go through the latest information on the Michigan scandal at 5 Eastern. And if you have any requests for any videos, certainly let me know. You can always leave the comments in the comments section. Check out the instant analysis videos that we just posted. Ohio State, Wisconsin, UCLA, Colorado, and the rest throughout the day in college football. We'll see you all on Sunday. Enjoy your rest of the night and throughout the day on Sunday. This is now Sunday, Mark. Sunday. See you later.